Mr. McCausland, will you please take roll?
Mrs. Feiss.
Here.
Mr. Grisback.
Here.
Mrs. Janzek.
Here.
Mrs. Hopi.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mrs. Turner. Here. Mr. Christensen.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda will be a presentation from the Dogwood Charter School. I would like to start out this section of the agenda with the following statement to introduce the topic that we're going to hear. So good evening. Is December 14th, 2021 at the time and place advertised charter school hearing and monthly combined committee business meetings of the Bethel Park School District. We'll begin this evening with a special public hearing convened under the Pennsylvania Charter School Law in response to the charter application of Dogwood Charter School. Once the public hearing closes, the board will convene its monthly meeting. Both the hearing and the meeting were duly advertised per law. As a reminder to the public that the meetings are open to the public through the Bethel Park television and YouTube live stream. To comment, individuals may call 412-851-6911 at the designated time. I now call to order the special public hearing under Section 1717-A of the Charter School Law for the application of Dogwood Charter School. This special public hearing is required by the Charter School Law for the board to receive public comments regarding the provisions of the application for Dogwood Charter School. The charter school's designated spokesperson will be given 30 minutes to present their application and testimony. Then the board will entertain public comment regarding the charter application. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to present their comments. Remember to preface your comment with the statement of your name and what town you live in. Comments can only be accepted from Bethel Park residents and taxpayers pursuant to board policy. Again, the call-in number for public comment is 412-851-6911. If commenters have a prepared testimony, we ask that a written copy be submitted to the superintendent, Dr. Walsh, via email at walsh.james@bphawks.org. Copies of any written testimony will be provided to the court reporter to be made a part of the official record of this public hearing. All board members will receive it. The purpose of this hearing is for the charter applicant to introduce the proposed charter school and give the public an opportunity to present comment regarding the application. The designated representative for Dogwood Charter may now approach the microphone.
Hello. We are a part of Dogwood Charter School, and we are here to present and show you how Dogwood can be an innovative school in our community. I would also like to point out that you will see pictures throughout the presentation, and they are either from Gillingham, who I'll explain who that is in a little bit, or from our community of students who are currently receiving a Charlotte Mason education. We will have people speak in support a little bit at the end, but Gwen needs to go home, so I'm going to have her speak first as to why she feels it's important for Dogwood to open in our community.
I think there should be more schools like Dogwood Charter School because there aren't many, and some kids need more help than others.
So who we are. My name is Bethel Pat White. I am one of the founders and have been an educator for 16 years.
I'm Rebecca Lang. I'm another founder, mother of 3, and realtor.
And we also have 3 members that are virtually attending, so if they need to help with answer questions. I also have some other members here as well to help answer questions if you have questions for us at the end. But we are educators, therapists, writers, social workers, and other community members who want a relational education for our children. So our model school is Gillingham Charter School. So they were the first public Charlotte Mason school in the United States. They have been open for 10 years and have been very successful. Nicole Hutchinson, who is their executive director and founder, and she's also an instructional coach for 29 years, and she is our consultant as well. We did not want to recreate the reel when we started this process, so we did our research, and we learned that there was a school like Gillingham Charter School out there. When we read about their educational philosophies and about Charlotte Mason, we knew we needed to replicate it and bring it to our community. Who was Charlotte Mason? Most people do not know who she is. Even as educators, a lot of us were not familiar with who she was. She was a British educator and dedicated her life to improving the quality of education for all children. During her life, there were over 400 schools open using her educational philosophies. And I always like to give the example that she's kind of like Fred Rogers. We all know who Fred Rogers is and how he related to children and what he did. She was before his time, but that's how I feel that most people know who she was like. So the pedagogy of Dogwood, we will speak about that next. We are going to share with you, and Rebecca will begin.
I'm going to be speaking about relational education, which is the method in which Charlotte Mason, her philosophy. So it's important to give you a view of what makes this kind of education different. It's often misunderstood to solely mean relationships between students and teachers and students with each other in the school. But of course, that's true. That happens in all schools, but relational education is much more than that. It empowers its students to take ownership of their own learning in a way that honors each student as a whole person. I'm going to discuss some important methodological distinctions. Relationships with many ideas, real things, and persons. Minds of social beings are awakened through relationships with others, Minds of social beings are awakened through relationships with others, with relationships with real things, and with concepts. Therefore, learning requires mind meeting mind, as well as memorable experiences and relationships between people, ideas, and concepts. Students will meet these minds in whole books, in biographies, in art, and in the community through field studies, internships, and service projects. The teacher as a facilitator. Dogwood teachers come to the table with the students to learn, not to dispense knowledge. They learn with the children, and they learn about the children's needs because students are thinking for themselves and expressing their knowledge. Research shows that students must be actively engaged with content in order to learn it. Through oral discussion and narration, teachers monitor what students do or do not understand. They can then immediately build on a student's understanding and help them build on that knowledge. Living books. Dogwood will depend on well-written books with rich language, strong vocabulary, narrative, and an author's love for the subject. Living books are not textbooks. Living books are also called whole books or narrative books. Often they are historical fiction, which is used because the engagement of children with learning is more important than memorizing historical facts. Education and facts without context have no relationship and therefore do not stir the mind. When the brain's amygdala is activated through the use of emotions, learning becomes personal. If it does not become personal, then there is no learning. Narration. Every reading is followed by a narration. This is very important in the Charlotte Mason method. Material is read once and then acted out, drawn, retold, sung, or copied. Then students generate the questions without teacher interrogation. The class dialogues together, learning from one another's ideas and experiences, thus learning more and retaining more. Short lessons. Research shows that the human brain can attend no longer than 30 minutes. To respect children's minds and bodies and ability to pay attention, classes are short and varied. Disciplined subjects are in the morning hours, when attention is keen, and more mechanical tasks such as drama or handwork or sport are saved for the afternoons. A broad curriculum. The content is broad to keep students' minds engaged and challenged. There are no electives or tracking. Every student is required to take Shakespeare, Spanish, physical education, sports, art, music, instrument lessons, nature study, and internships. And more. Thus, we are requiring all students to take risks and to experience success in areas they didn't know that they could be successful, which is an authentic self-esteem booster. Research shows that right-brained activities such as art and music improve the left side of the brain's capacity to learn. The mind, The mind is designed to digest knowledge, and so we provide all students with a rich, generous curriculum that exposes them to many interesting living ideas and concepts. Non-traditional homework. Research demonstrates that traditional homework has little to no effect on student achievement. However, it does have an adverse effect on family life. At Dogwood, students will be expected to read at home after school, on the weekends, and during holidays, since students need to read for 2 or more hours per day to equal 1 year's growth in reading. Homework may occasionally include individual assignments based on personal needs when necessary. For instance, when a student has failed to keep on task in class and thus needs to complete the work at home. Formative assessments. Teachers assess students daily and weekly for learning. These formative assessments are kept in notebooks and completed through narrations, dictations, recitations, essays, mathematical problem solving and computation, and word study. At the end of each term, teachers do an assessment of learning and focus on student understanding. Examinations consist of open-ended questions and are used to monitor student achievement overall and to check for various skills, understandings, and knowledge. Of course, since Dogwood will be a public school, our students will take PSSAs and Keystone exams as well. Nature study. Nature study provides a foundation for formal science studies, makes science interesting, increases children's capacity to understand the unknown, cultivates a love of investigation, gives a sense of ownership and stewardship of the earth, enriches children's lives, and increases intellect and character. And now Beth will talk about, go ahead, you can introduce.
I am now going to speak on what makes our school, a Charlotte Mason school, unique. Being a small school creates a less competitive, more cooperative atmosphere to foster relationships between the students, teachers, and administrators. Traditional schools are one of the few places children are grouped together by a single age. Nearly everywhere else, from sports to scouts to art programs, children are grouped into broader age groups, just as they will be in adult life. Behaviors including sharing, taking turns, and helping are more apparent within multi-age classes. A better self-concept and general attitude towards schooling are also associated with multi-age education. Children of the same age are not necessarily at the same developmental age. A child might be on one level for a certain area, such as reading, and a different level in another, such as math. Normal development takes place within a range, not a specific age. Multi-age classrooms remove pressure and feelings of inadequacy from children, creating an environment where they can learn, succeed, and flourish. As a result, it builds a sense of community within the school. Within a looped environment, the familiarity to students deepens and individual needs are better and more quickly realized in the second year with the same group of students and teacher. With the extended time that students usually remain with the teacher, parent-teacher relationships evolve. Both parties develop a trust and understanding for each other's roles, creating a family relationship. For students who receive less support from home, this secure structure can be a well-needed and positive situation. Looping reduces anxiety and frustration for parents and students, and more significantly, may produce a completely different outcome for children who simply needed a few additional months to mature. In younger grades, teachers will loop every 2 years, excluding kindergarten. Kindergarten, the teacher does not loop. Starting in first grade to second grade, the teachers loop for 2 years. All the way up, and then high school will be the traditional 4 years of looping. And then some teachers, depending on what they teach, and because it will be a smaller school, so we may not have as many teachers, that they will be with them from K to 12. So they will be able to gain that rapport for the whole time with them. Restorative practices. We will have staff trained in the Nurtured Heart approach, which is a program that uses restorative practices. Rather than using punitive approaches to discipline and social interaction in school life, restorative means are pursued. Positive behaviors are recognized more than negative behaviors. So to give an example, because it sounds one thing on paper, but we got to see it in action at Gillingham, and it really is a different way of instructing the students. It really focuses on the teacher notices what they say, all the positive things over and over again. It almost sounds repetitive, but it's extra positive reinforcement, and then the negative, if needs to be addressed, is, but what they call is it's a reset. So the students have the opportunity to take a step back, reset themselves, and be able to join back. And they always welcome them back, which I really liked. The second the kid was done resetting, they decided when that was, too. It was not decided by the teacher. They're welcomed back into the classroom. And they didn't leave the classroom, they just stayed where they were, reset their body, closed their eyes for a moment, and were able to jump right back in. Oh, we good? Natural consequences result from choices. Adults present ideas that inspire right action, leading to good habits and ultimately strong, healthy character. Teachers and students support each other in the development of intellectual, physical, and social habits. It is a community-oriented approach to school discipline that preserves and restores relationships. Students develop respectful and restorative habits for reconciliation and collaboration. Students need to know boundaries and need to know that someone will be there to help them to help solve problems when needed. And there is, in our budget, we will have a school counselor and also a school coach that will also do push-in as well to help with this as well, not just the classroom teacher. Students feel better about themselves and others and learn positive ways to resolve conflict and to repair relationships. These also develop essential skills for life that over time ensure they grow into adults and are more likely to be socially responsible team players, employees, and leaders. Time spent outdoors is really big in Charlotte Mason schools. So it strengthens on-task behavior and increases student achievement. Students will go outside for nature walks, create and grow a school garden, and when weather permits, they will have lunch outdoor as a whole school, all grade levels together. They will play outside during breaks and recess. And also any other classes can be held outside. Karate, Spanish, maybe walking through the garden using their language for describing what they see. So not just your nature and science classes being outside, multiple different classes when the weather permits are able. As you can see in our picture, we do karate currently outside. Students will go out into the community through field studies and service projects. Instrumental instruction. So music classes and instrument instruction will happen at each grade level. So grades kindergarten through second grade is where they learn piano. So they all have to learn piano in those years. In grades 3 through 12, they can then choose their instrument. Picture and composer study. In picture study, students study a masterpiece and tell and retell the picture in their own words. So using that narration that we use in reading and other classes as well. They focus on one artist per turn. In composer study, students learn of the composer's music and life. The study of the arts allows for a balanced education and a well-rounded child. When participating in these studies, students also learn history, worldview, and critical thinking. Community relationships. This is a deliberate invitation to the wider community of Allegheny County to join in the learning adventure of their towns and heritage. They will be invited to observe, attend recitals and dramas, book clubs, displays, and workshops to encourage a growing partnership with home, community, and school. The learners themselves begin to create the learning atmosphere and practice hospitality as a wider expression of the personhood and community. They will build relationships with those in their community by visiting places and people outside the school through monthly field studies, which is a little bit different than a field trip. They happen monthly as opposed to just maybe a couple times a year, and it's really just going out into the community at different places. It could be simple as visiting a business or a library or things so they can get used to and see their community. They will develop real relationships and vocational skills through mentoring and volunteer programs. Through such service projects and internships, students learn about themselves and their community, growing a sense of respect, appreciation, and responsibility. And then obviously, all visitors will have their clearances, just as Bethel Park does the same thing, and have them on file in order to come into the building. And students at Gillingham really got used to this, obviously pre-pandemic, because it doesn't even become a disruption to the classroom because they're so used to people coming in, observing, and kind of seeing their classrooms and how they work. Home-like environment. Classrooms will be set up like a home environment. Tables instead of desks, rugs, pictures, and artwork hung on the walls, plants placed around the room. It creates a home-like environment which creates familiarity, reducing stress and anxiety. Throughout the trimester, students create a portfolio. What's a little bit different with their portfolios is they use them to lead their parent conferences and showcase their work from the trimester. So they have student-led conferences in all the grade levels where the student actually leads and shows their parents what they've been learning and demonstrate what they've learned through the trimester. Other important differences are there will be a required internship. It will take place in either 11th or 12th grade during one trimester. Internships will give students the opportunity to explore a future career and see it hands-on in person. Foreign language will start in kindergarten and go all the way up to 12th grade. Foreign languages should be learned as a native tongue was learned. That means that they should spend a significant amount of time listening to the language before being expected to pronounce the words. Grammar should be de-emphasized in language lessons, especially with beginners, because it makes students self-conscious, which diminishes their willingness to take risks. Grammar and sentence structure are absorbed unconsciously as students are immersed in a foreign language. In time, they begin to be expressed in speech naturally. Karate creates a mind-body connection and discipline that students can use in class and life. It builds confidence, hones leadership skills, develops character, encourages self-discipline, and promotes healthy body and weight. And providing things like karate and instruments lessons as a class in school, it leaves more family time at home and in the evenings.
Charter schools are required to be innovative and to be model schools. Teachers and administrators from Bethel Park School District and the surrounding school districts will be welcome to tour and observe and also take part in our professional development. The school will host school-wide lesson studies for student teachers, educators, professors, and researchers from universities around the nation. Dogwood Charter Schools budget and 5-year plan was prepared by Charter Choices Incorporated. They're an independent educational consulting firm that offers back office, administrative, and accounting support for schools. More information is in Appendix C. I don't want to bore you with all the details. Of course, I do want to discuss potential financial impact because I know that is a concern, of course. Enrollment for the Bethel Park School District this year is listed on the website as 4,237 students. Our projected enrollment for the first year is 114. We projected a third of the students coming from Bethel Park. It will most likely be less. We can pull from over 30 school districts. We do have 20 pre-enrolled from Bethel Park, but the 38 students from Bethel Park is less than 1% of Bethel Park School District students. The revenue for BPSD this year is $94,010,915. The reserve fund is $9,105,089. and the projected cost to send those 38 students to Dogwood is $719,000, $719,428 and change. So that's less than 1% of BPSD revenue. The revenue per student on average, including special ed and regular ed students, is $22,188 and change per student. Payment to Dogwood on average would be $18,932 and change, and so Bethel Park School District keeps $3,255 and change. Many students enrolling in Dogwood Charter School from Bethel Park School District may already attend other charter schools, and thus it would be a net zero change for those students. Also, assistance to school districts is available from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania when the district students transfer to charter schools. Beth, proposed facility.
So, proposed facility, Dr. Walsh and a few of his team staff toured our proposed facility. During that time, we showed them that the inside there is space for administration, nurse, teacher, and counseling offices. There's also a flex space that can have different purposes, such as a cafeteria, physical education, performing arts, studio. Walls will be removed in certain places to create classrooms for all grade levels. A security system is already in place, but there's also money allocated in our budget to make security improvements as needed. A drive for the buses will be created, so you can see on the far left picture, that's the parking lot. A drive will be created from the front of it all the way to the back, so buses can pull in and out without turning around. Also, you can see in the middle picture, there's Miners Park is within walking distance, so a path will be created. We've already spoken to the owner of the adjacent property, and they are willing to allow us to rent space to create a direct path, so they won't have to go on a street or anything to go from our facility to the park, to use that as an extension of our classroom as well. Picnic tables for lunches and classrooms will be placed around the sides and back of the building. Also, on the third picture from the left, also that space, the fence will be put up at the street, so that way we can use that as an outdoor play space as well. Raised garden beds will be created all along the side of the building. And in regards to staff and visitors and student parking, there are currently 40 parking spots. And the renovations will be included in our lease agreement with the building owners. So just to show community support, our projected, because we only have 5 minutes left, our first year of enrollment is 114 students. We currently already have 150 pre-enrollments. So that was from last year and this year. We've been accumulating them. I will leave these up. These are quotes from families that shared why they want this school, but we also have a couple moments left, so I'm going to let 2 people speak briefly about why this is an impact for them as well.
Hi. Jump the microphone. Hi, my name's Tracy Bourne, and oops. Oh, 2 minutes. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited listening to what they're saying. I have been homeschooling for years. I first met Charlotte Mason when my 28-year-old son was 9 months old in this book, For the Children's Sake. And, you know, the things they're talking about, a relational education, you know, it's like, it's, you know, hearing the definition, you might not picture it, you know, what does this really look like? It looks like my daughter when she was 9 years old, and we read Johnny Tremain, a book about the Revolution, where she learned that he went to a restaurant where Paul Revere went, and he ate like a king and all these things, and we're eating at Eaton Park at the buffet. She'd never seen a salad bar, and she said, I feel like Johnny Tremain at the Afro Queen. You know, this was her connections she was making, you know, and she understood what the revolution was about. You know, it's about my son, when I took him out of high school, I took my boys out of school when they were 10 and 12, and I was 8 months pregnant with our 16-year-old daughter. And it's them telling me, Mom, you know what I miss about school? Because, you know, education is not a one-size-fits-all situation. He told me, I miss being in the back row and pretending I understood what was going on, because I had him narrate everything every single day. And they had to, so what'd you get out of that? What'd you learn? You know, what was interesting? And then, I'm going to speak? Oh. So they began to realize very quickly they had to pay attention, because they had to tell me what they learned. It looks like my 5-year-old grandson, who I'm now home educating, telling me, you know, we're walking down our street in Brookline, and I just started quoting a part of a poem that we were learning. out of the trees with rustling sleeves fall wonderful, colorful autumn leaves. And he said, Grandma, I was just thinking that poem, because we were learning it. And it's just a beautiful way of learning. And I am so excited that this could be available in our city. And you know, I'm 55 years old. Honestly, I've homeschooled my 3 children. I don't see myself home educating my grandson all the way, but I love this educational philosophy so much that I would, because I just see the beauty in it. So I do hope that this will be a beautiful thing for our city. So that's all.
Good evening. My name is Franny McAleer. I live in Upper St. Clair, and I had the pleasure 3 years ago to supervise a teacher at Gillingham Charter School. And I immediately noticed a very loving, comforting, connected community of teachers. When I met Nicole, who was the founder, I asked her why she's the founder. And she said, well, my son was in 3rd grade and he didn't want to go to school. And I decided that instead of trying to make school work for him, I would create a school that would make him want to go there, want to learn, and also bring other children there. And so as I walked around the school, all I can say is, if kids can dream, they can dream in this school. She opened a door, and I saw the most magnificent music room, and I said, well, what do we do here? She said, well, whatever they want to learn to play, they learn to play it here, and they can do that for 12 years. And I looked up and I saw every imaginable instrument. And I said, well, what about that bassoon? She said, one little girl wanted to play that. So what I think every time I would go there and I would leave is, this is where I want my children to go if they want to dream big. There's a new book that I just read called If They Wonder, They're Learning. And at Gillingham, kids can wonder, and they have all the tools that are magnificent. And in terms of, when we talk about the nurtured heart, I saw amazing high school students that were misbehaving, and then they kind of left the room, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to hear screaming, what's going to happen? You know, are they going to be expelled? And instead they came back in, and they had basically written a plan for them to be able to reset their day and to go continue learning and be a positive force in the school. It was truly, that was the highlight of my time there. Thank you.
Well, that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, members of the board, do you have questions of the presentations just given? I have one question. Could you, what are the grade levels? And maybe I missed that, but
Yeah.
what grades does this
So it
school
will be
include?
K through 12. Oh, this one's louder, sorry.
K through 12?
Yes, opening our doors first will be K through 8, and then each year we will add a grade until we are K through 12.
So first year is K through 3?
K through 8.
K through 8, okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the board?
Yeah, so I was looking at comparable school districts. So right now for Gillingham Charter, the public school in that area is Pottsville School District. And I guess my main concern was that students are, I'm amenable to a lot of the things in your presentation, but I have concerns about, I guess, the critical thinking skills that students will learn at Dogwood Charter. And looking at the reading proficiency for Gillingham, it's only 47% versus 70% at Pottsville. Math is 22% versus 59% at Pottsville, and the graduation rate at Gillingham Charter is only 68% versus 84% at Pottsville. I understand that Gillingham does have a little bit higher of an economically disadvantaged population. However, even if you just look solely at the economically disadvantaged students in Pottsville, that still doesn't come anywhere close to kind of accounting for that gap. Do you have any plans in order to make sure that you are really educating that entire student, including the reading and the math, and giving them the 21st century skills they'll need to succeed in the workforce?
Absolutely. And first, Nicole is on virtually, so is she able to unmute herself? I just want to check with her if she has a comment to regards to that since it is Gillingham before I comment. Is she able to unmute? Nicole, are you able to, would you like to respond? If you do not, I can,
Sure, I can respond. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me be here. In regards to your question about our test scores, it is interesting how test scores work, and we are a Title I school, and so about 75% of our students are economically disadvantaged. So that also means that our special ed numbers are high too. So we double the percentage of special ed numbers of the Pottsville Area School District usually. And when you're a small school, the numbers do get skewed. So I'm just going to state that. But it's not that we don't look at those scores, and we have been working on things. It's interesting when you're in a school where we use authentic assessment and students are asked what they know, not tricked to see what they don't know by using multiple choice and true or false and those kinds of questions, which are on standardized tests. So what we've had to learn to do over the years, since everything we've done is authentic and students tell back, and when they read, they're reading to attend and pay attention to what they're reading, because then they're going to have to tell it back. They're not used to going back, and they're used to reading full novels. Whereas in the testing, that's not the kind of skill that you need. You need this kind of skill to see the question, find the answer, and give the answer. It's interesting too that some people are teaching for the text-dependent analysis question to stop reading novels. We were actually told that at a training somewhere, to stop reading novels and just read excerpts. So we've had to teach our students how to take a test, and that's helped in the way that they score on these things. And we also use our benchmarks in-house. That is truer to who we are and what we're doing, and we're seeing that our students are improving. And when you're a charter school, you often find that you get students who come to your school for that philosophy that you're offering, but you also get students who are struggling elsewhere. And so when they come, they need time to eventually grow and improve academically, which would show in their testing. So the longer you're at Gillingham, the higher your scores get, and that you keep on growing. And Gillingham did meet the growth standards in all areas. So there's always this improvement that we're doing and making sure that we're providing this rich curriculum and making sure that we're also showing our kids how to show that on a standardized test. So that's a little bit of background about what's going on there. But I also just have that question that I just present to you and to the world, is that where's that test that shows, that asks, how much has your kid left to read now? Because a lot of people don't like to read anymore. And that's disturbing to me. We have surveyed our parents and asked them, how much did your child love to read before they came to Gillingham, and how much do they like to read now? And it nearly doubles the amount of love of reading, or love of school, or talking about ideas, or being able to listen. Our parents constantly tell us that they're shocked at what their children tell them that they've learned that day, that they actually want to talk about what they learned.
Excuse me, Ms. Hutchinson, could you just wrap up in the next minute, please? Because we have
sure.
to keep going.
No, I just wanted to give a little bit of a different perspective on that. So I hope that helped and answered your question.
And also to go along with, adding to that is that it is a broad curriculum, and even having foreign language starting in kindergarten creates those synapses as well. And also a lot of times PSSA scores are recorded, but also the soft skills that children learn for this type of curriculum too, to be able to be productive adults in society more than just also test scores.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. So Dogwood Charter School states that teachers and students learn together, removing intimidation. What makes the dynamic between the teacher and the student different than diverse learners and the teacher learning together in a K through 12 public school configuration?
What makes it different than what, than,
Yes. Yes. Dogwood Charter School states that teachers and students learn together, removing intimidation. What makes the dynamic between the teacher and student different than diverse learners and the teacher learning together in a K through 12 public school configuration?
yeah, so in this type of learning with Charlotte Mason, we're used to kind of the teacher being in front and the teacher dispensing the information. So what we mean is if it's more of a back and forth. It's they collaborate, they work together. Like whenever they ask to be retold or narrate back, the teacher doesn't say anything. The student gives the information, then another student builds off of that, and then another student builds off of that. So it's more the relation, the interconnectedness, and not just necessarily the teacher giving that information. So that's what we mean by working together and collaborating together, if that helps.
An example of that is, if I can add, sorry, were you done? When I was observing a middle school math class at Gillingham, the teacher put 3 problems on the board and had the students work on them in their notebooks. And then she asked the students to go up and, student to go up and do the problem, and then explain what they did, and then ask the students, do you agree? And one of the problems, I could tell they had gotten it wrong. And she asked, do you agree? And instead of going and showing them what was wrong, she just kept saying, does anybody have another opinion? And one of the students said, oh, by the way you're asking that, I can tell we got it wrong. But she did not tell them what was wrong. She waited until they figured it out. And one of the students finally said, oh, negative 12 minus 1 is 13. It's not 11, minus 11, whatever. So I think that's a little bit of the difference. Rather than the teacher giving the answer or showing you this plus this equals this, it allows the student to work through that process for themselves. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in public schools, of course it does, but that's the focus really in relational education, is letting the kids work those things out. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. The Charlotte Mason principals, I think there's 20 of them or so. How many are involved in your model, and which ones aren't included and why?
So do you mean the 24? Yeah, the only thing would be is non-sectarian, because lots of Charlotte Mason schools do involve, non-sectarian because a lot of Charlotte Mason schools involve religion, and obviously being a public school, that will be removed. But otherwise, we have the 25 distinctions that make up the Charlotte Mason. Do you want me to list it, or do you?
That's okay. I was just curious why there was a difference.
Yeah, that's the difference, is that it's a non-sectarian form of Charlotte Mason, because Charlotte Mason, obviously it's a public school and we cannot teach religion.
So I have a follow-up to that, Mr. Christensen. How only adopting those principles that you said that are non-sectarian, how will that hurt your accreditation with Charlotte Mason Institute?
That's a good question.
Well, how will it hurt it? Is that what you said? It won't, because they have a religious component and not. And so they are actually, Gillingham is accredited with them as well, so they've already been through this process. We would not be the first. So they are able to separate those two things. And they actually created a curriculum for a public school as well, because obviously before they had not. So Gillingham has kind of already taken those reins and created that within, so there are separate. So good question, because people do seem to think that they're the same, and they're not. That organization has 2 sections.
Any other questions from the board?
I have another question. Dogwood Charter School states that all students experience algebra, physics, reading, foreign language, composers, artists, nature walks, dance, theater, Shakespeare, music, piano instruction, sports, composition, philosophy, and poetry, because no child is grouped as general ed. all students are exposed to these things in the K through 12 program in a public school as well, how does DCS not then offering general ed?
How do we offer general ed?
How is DCS not then offering general ed?
Well, because a lot of times certain students in a public might not get Shakespeare or different, different things that maybe are just held for the gifted students or different things like that. So instead of just having certain subjects for maybe just the gifted or maybe for students needing a little bit more help, it's everyone gets all of the same.
We don't have electives, so all subjects are taught to all children. So whether they're special ed or whether they're general ed or whether they're gifted, they get all those subjects. So there's no, like for high school, some students might, at Bethel Park High School, obviously some students are more interested in art and so they take art electives. Well, at Dogwood, all children will be taking art. It's required. We don't have, there are no electives. Does that make sense? Okay.
Before any more board questions, I think I should announce now, since we have a delay on the YouTube, that we will accept public questions to call in on this topic only at this point in the agenda, so on the Dogwood Charter School. Questions about the remaining part of our agenda will follow later. So I just want to announce that now, and people can call in at 412-851-6911. But I'll then turn it back over to the board. I just wanted to announce that since there's somewhat of a delay.
If we have those that would be calling in because they are Bethel Park residents and wanted to comment, are they able to do that in person? Because they also had to be here to answer questions. Is that?
You say it again?
We have a few people that would like to comment in person. They are here because in order to answer questions if you had questions for them, but is that possible
Okay.
to do?
I mean, we if they're Bethel Park residents
Yes.
for public comments, yes.
Okay.
You would like to do that now?
Well, as long as, unless somebody else has any other questions.
No, he's doing it. Oh, he is. Okay. So would you like them to speak?
Yeah, if they're Bethel Park
Okay.
residents, yeah. If there's no other board questions and there are Bethel Park residents who wish to speak.
My name is Daniel Broadland. I live at 1130 Bory View off of King School Road. I have two sons, one that's 5 years old and another one that's 2 months. And our 5-year-old son has some challenges. Physically and academically, he's progressing right on schedule, but socially is where he has a little more challenge. And we've gone to a few different schools, like the Montessori school in Mount Lebanon, and he's actually over at Good Shepherd over in Peters Township, and have had better success with him in some of those environments, a little bit non-traditional setups. And a lot of that was, we had been told that it was from a misdiagnosis when he was a kid that ended up causing some brain injury. He's going to be a great kid. He is a great kid, but those challenges are something that, to a lesser degree, but I understand where that's all coming from. The type of one-on-one, or I should say smaller group focus, is something that he's going to need for people to take a little extra time, a little bit extra focus, and a little bit understanding, professional understanding of how his beautiful mind works. And it is a big concern of mine. I went through public school. I graduated from Upper St. Clair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. This is partly my fault. I forgot to remind people that we limit our public comments to 2 minutes. So if you could wrap up in the next 30 seconds.
Sure, yeah. So I know the quality of school district that this is, but with the smaller class sizes and the tactics that they use to focus and help them deal with those social challenges. That's the type of thing that I want to see in the school. And so, the DART program has already suggested that we look for private or homeschooling options. That was their recommendation. And I love Bethel Park. I would rather raise my kids in Bethel Park. And to have a school like this in our neighborhood nearby would, for us, be an absolute benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Minutes, sir?
2 minutes, please. Yes.
Settle. My name is Renelle Huth. I live at 41 Clifton Road, Bethel Park. To answer your question, I raised 2 children that were technically, what's that word that they use? Well, they were dyslexic, but the special ed. And neither of them tested well in school. They're both relatively retired, and they're just barely 30 years old. They were entrepreneurial. I'm really nervous, excuse me. They're entrepreneurial. They've really, when they were 13 years old, I had no choice because public school, when you have a special ed kid, has this giant umbrella, and it puts everyone in that, underneath that umbrella, and those kids are all different. They all have different needs, and I have so much I want to say, but I'm so excited that you would have and host a community like this in Bethel Park, because there is a screaming, loud need for it. Not everyone has a perfect kid that they can send to public school. Oh my God, that would have been so easy. But it wasn't for me. And I was the one who hosted a school like this in my home. I had kids coming to do athletics. I had kids coming to do art, mathematics. We had a learning group for reading. And it was exhausting. And to have 2 teachers and a whole group of people that would all work together to raise these kids and to educate these kids is just heaven sent. And I'm just so excited that you're all willing to listen and that you're willing to host the opportunity to host a school like this in our community. A million more things I'd like to say to you, but I want to honor the 2 minutes, and I hope that I have expressed myself correctly. But my kids did not test well, but they've really done well in the world. My daughter was on LinkedIn. Match.com was looking to open up a brand new $7 million platform. They called her up and said, hey, are you available? And boom, now she works for them. And she's been with them for 3 years, and she's done very well in the corporate world. But if you look at her academically and you look at her test scores, it didn't match up. And that's part of what happens when you're raising kids like this. Their ability level and what they look like on paper doesn't match.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Christina Huth, and I am the building owner that they are hoping to move the school into. And I also wanted to speak towards the test scores from Gillingham. I am extremely dyslexic. I read at a first grade reading level on average, and I won't even tell you what I do math at because it's a joke. I was failed by the public school system, and one day when I was 12, I told my mom I'm not going to school. So she scrambled and pulled something together for me, and my grandfather was a phenomenal businessman, and he took me under his wing and got me into business. I'm now 31 years old. I am fully retired and own a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio and business because somebody gave me a chance that was different. I'm absolutely astonished. I believe Gillingham has over 50% students like me with a learning disability, that their test scores are so high. Because as an adult, if I took a standardized test, it would be a joke, but the test compared to what I can do in real life, I have an assistant that reads to me. She reads every contract, she does any type of number, she does all of it for me. So just because my learning disability reflects poorly doesn't mean I don't function well in the world. And I think I'm a shining example of why Bethel Park needs a school like this. I speak for kids with learning disabilities everywhere I go, because everybody asks me, well, how did you overcome it, and what did you do? And I was very fortunate to have a family that rallied behind me and pushed me into business, because kids with learning disabilities tend to do really well in business. And I have pushed several young kids into business, and they have thrived. Kids that were failing in high school, we've taken them under our wing, my husband and I, and got them into real estate, and now they're in their early 20s and have a real estate portfolio. Just because you're dyslexic and because you're different doesn't mean that you're not going to thrive if given the right opportunity. That's why when they approached us to move this school into our building, my husband and I will move heaven and earth to make it happen, because I also have a son who is on the spectrum, who is going to struggle. And as a parent who lived through that struggle in a public school,
I'll have to ask you to wrap up.
I will do anything to prevent my son having to go through that.
Thank you.
For your time.
Anyone else? Any call-ins on this topic?
Yes, we have one caller. Luann?
Hello?
Hi, Luann. If you
Hello?
state your name and your address, you have 2 minutes.
Sure. My name is Luann Canal. I live at, pardon me? Hello?
Hi, Luann. If you state your name and your address, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, Luann.
I live at 342 Carlton Road in Bethel Park. Should
All right,
I
you have
start
two-
talking?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
hi.
You have 2 minutes.
I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know why that's repeating. Okay. As a former Bethel Park teacher of 35 plus years, and most of those years I taught child development, I would like to speak in support of Dogwood Charter School. Bethel Park has always been a wonderful place to work and learn. I live in Bethel Park for almost 40 years, and both of my children did well in this school district. I believe adding this charter school would enhance the school district's opportunity to meet the needs of the parents and children who do not excel in a traditional classroom setting. Many children become overwhelmed in a classroom of 25 or more children. Some children need to move around as they learn, and others do better in multi-age groupings. All of these issues can be addressed in a Charlotte Mason-based curriculum. These are only a few of the advantages of adding Dogwood Charter School to the opportunities families have in the South Hills. I sincerely hope you consider the children more than the bottom line when you make your decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other call-ins on this topic?
We have no other callers at this time.
Okay. Any other board comments? Public comments? Okay. That'll conclude this presentation, this section of our meeting, and thank you for coming and presenting. And we'll transition back into the regular business agenda.
Thank you very much for having us and listening. We appreciate it.
So the next item on the agenda, I need a motion to adopt the agenda for business items.
So moved. I move the motion to adopt agenda for business items.
So the motion was made by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Modrak to adopt the agenda items, adopt the business items.
Voting is open.
Got it, Dan?
Yeah, did everybody's
Mrs. Feist,
just pop up?
Pop up.
you can just verbally vote. Mrs. Feist?
Yeah, I approve it.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Yes. Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the minutes from the November 16th combined committee regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
It was moved by Mr. Scalzo, seconded by Ms. Turner.
Voting is open. Mrs. Feist?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoppy?
Is anybody getting a message that connection to a server may have been lost? Is that?
Motion carries.
Not yet.
It logged you out while the presentation was going on.
Oh, that's, okay. Yeah, okay. Now I've done it, because I was having a slow connection also.
You're done.
I'd like to announce the executive session that was conducted on December 14th for personnel, other legal matters, and to receive information. Next, we're going to have a presentation from Ms. Pamela Tiano regarding the Interact Club.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry. This one works a little bit better.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I'm thrilled to be here with Milena. She is a student at the high school. And my name's Caitlin Gensler, and I am a 7th grade reading teacher at Independence Middle School. And this year I took on the Interact Club with my co-faculty advisor, Tracy Schuster. And we have just been overwhelmed by what great students that we have at both IMS and at the high school. Our program does include both. It's grades 7 through 12. And we were ecstatic to have the opportunity to come here tonight and to tell you about all of the things that we have done since we started in August together. So I'm going to let Melina take it away. I want her to speak on our behalf. I'll chime in if there's anything I think that's left out, but she does a great job. So, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So like she said, my name is Melina Stewart. I just want to thank all of you guys for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of our Interact Club. I'm a junior at Bethel Park High School, and I'm the president of Interact Club. So a couple things to get started just before I really get into our presentation. First, kind of want to address, what is Interact Club? So Interact Club is a conjoined effort of the middle school and high school students, like Mrs. Gensler had previously mentioned, from grades 7 to 12. What we are is that we are the student body who come together and meet on the first and third Wednesdays of every month to discuss ways that we can really implement our passion for service in the community. So far, this is the second year that Interact Club has been going on at the high school. Last year was our first year, and being a COVID year, it was really hard to really get out in the community and kind of have on that one-on-one basis with different people in the community, but we definitely didn't let that stop us, and we really did thrive. I would like to contribute a lot of our success to the Rotary members who really helped us establish our budgets right out the gate. Kind of a couple of things. So we established our budget by producing $1,000 we made in profit from a flower sale last May, which really took off in our club. At the beginning of Interact Club, we had about 30 members, and this year we rose from 30 to 150 members between the middle school and the high school. So, could you go back for just a minute? No, you're fine, you're fine. Okay, no, I think you're good. So yes, established in 2020, and now we have our wonderful advisors, Mrs. Gensler and Mrs. Schuster, who took over this year. This previous picture was a picture from our parade. You can skip to the next one, awesome. So the first thing that we did this year was we really kicked off the school year by participating in our homecoming parade, which was really fun. We have a couple pictures here. We got to have our own float, which generously, Mrs. Gensler gave us her T-Bird to kind of drive around in and really kind of get our name out. So something new this year that we didn't have last year was our Interact banner, which was pretty cool. We kind of got to establish that with the Rotary as well, with our motto of service above self. So those are a couple just images from that day.
For the parade, we were able to make fans that we passed out to the community, and the students were able to throw out candy. And we also hosted a Kona ice track during the football game that was able to allow us to profit $115 and then contribute that toward a few of the things you'll see later in the slideshow.
Awesome. So kind of getting more into it, we had a community day that we were able to participate in. We sold a couple different things. Something that I do want to get into is that a big part of our club is, yes, service, but it's how do we implement that service. And the big portion of it is contributing that money to different foundations that we feel or we're really passionate about. And one of those is Smiles from Sean. There's a member in our club, Sean Rovers, who fights cancer, and he uses the money that he raised for his foundation to provide care packages to other cancer patients at St. Clair Hospital who fight the same disease and are going through the same things. So Smiles from Sean, last year, we were generously able to donate a $7,100 check to St. Clair Hospital at the end of last year. So that's a really great thing that I just wanted to address. So we sold his t-shirts as a way to fundraise for his cause. Student cookbooks that were made last year that have several recipes from our members incorporated within that book. And we sold a couple different things like raffle baskets and things like that to contribute to our success and our budget this year. And then do you have the exact number of how much we raised?
Yeah, we made about $1,200 on that day at the community day. That again, we have some pictures of some of the activities the students did with the first few meetings that we hosted with the Interact Club that we were able to give back to the faculty and staff at the schools, and also to some of the local organizations around our community.
So then, like I said, a big portion is helping out our Rotary Club and kind of getting our name out there with them. So we spend a lot of our time helping them with different service activities that they do year round, one of which is the spaghetti dinner that is held in October at the community center. So we have a couple pictures here of the successful day. A lot of members came out and really enjoyed that. So these are a couple pictures from our IMS kids specifically that are featured above. And then below we have me, the president, and then Abigail Goldenberg, which is our secretary, and Dom in the right corner, that's our treasurer. And then the week after that, busy weekend, we really were gladly able to do a lot of events right off the bat in the beginning of the year. So the following weekend, we had a barbecue chicken dinner that we were also able to help out with. That was at the high school and helping Rotary with that. So these are a couple pictures at the high school. They put in a lot of time and effort in it, and the volunteers worked really hard, so I'm proud about that.
We're very fortunate to have not only one but two Rotaries here in Bethel Park that support us. There's a breakfast Rotary Club and a lunch Rotary Club, and both of them have helped get us off our feet at the beginning. And then, of course, we do the same by volunteering and helping with some of their major, philanthropic or volunteer opportunities to have them raise money that they use for scholarships.
All right, so moving into this, last year we had one of our members, what we really try to address in Interact Club is that this is a club about service in the community, but it's also what passions do you have that you can bring to the table that can really be influential even outside of our Bethel Park community, which extends into Smiles from Sean, for example. So one of the girls said, hey, I'm really passionate about horses, and there's something that I would like to make treats for horses at a specific shelter. So we did supported the foundation of Horses with Hope, and we created horse treats and made those about 150 treats for Horses with Hope with the Equestrian Rescue Farm. So that was something we did as well, like right off the bat, beginning of the year, we had everyone come in and help make these treats for us. Just a couple pictures from that. And then we were like, well, we kind of want to do some things for the teachers, being back in a year where we can kind of have that interaction in the classroom. We were like, let's make some teacher survival kits. So Mrs. Gensler put this amazing poem together that you see on the board here.
I promise there was no influence by me, the teacher.
So in the bolded words were just a couple things that we included. So our proceeds from the Homecoming Cone ice sale were used to actually make these kits. So we made about 180 survival kits to welcome back both all the IMS and all the high school students. So we made sure everybody in both of those schools received one of these. And then soon after, we kind of got towards the end of October, and October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and of course we wanted to honor that. So we collaborated with St. Clair Hospital to host a pink out sale at the high school and at IMS in order to raise breast cancer awareness among our students. So we sold each of the products that you see in the screen for $1, and it was very successful. The IMS kids did specifically a very, very good job, along with the high school students. We had them kind of just volunteer their time during the lunch periods to spread that awareness. And our pink sale allowed us to provide a generous donation to 412 Thrive, which is a local nonprofit organization which helps individuals impacted by the effects of breast cancer and other genetic mutations that lead to cancer. So we donated that October 30th specifically, $500 from our budget to 412 Thrive. And then we have a couple of fun events that we were able to do within the community. And South Park Shops has a couple of holiday events that go on every year, one of which was a Halloween event. It's called South Park Shops Mini Spooktacular. So we had our members come up and dress up and have different kids in the community receive candy at the different shops. So it was just fun to get them kind of engaging with people in the community and kind of volunteering our time in that aspect. So that's for the Halloween event at South Park Shops. These are just a couple more pictures just from different things. The one on the left is just from a meeting where we kind of have buddy days where we extend the offer out to all of our members to bring friends to the meetings to kind of get a feel of what we're like and if they'd be interested in joining our club. So we have a picture in the left-hand corner about popcorn and different drinks that we sometimes have at our meetings as a way to have the kids enjoy themselves at the meetings. We have developed strong relationships with our community Rotarians, like I have mentioned, and they often do join us for meetings. A lot of the group work, they are our role models, and being a new club, we really thrive off of what they have to say, and we kind of bounce off of their ideas. So they do come, they help us a lot, they give us a ton of advice to how to thrive and really be active in our community. So these are a couple pictures, and then Mrs. Tiano, our Rotarian, who is most active in our club with Mrs. Gensler in the right-hand corner at the spaghetti dinner. Like I did mention, we have the slide here about Buddy Day, which allows students to gain interest in our club and have a chance to have some fun. Like it's mentioned, we have bingo games, which the members absolutely love bingo. They're always excited about that one when we have that at the meetings. So just a couple pictures, get real competitive there, let their competitive side come out. But so we have a couple pictures just from bingo at the beginning of the year.
We probably had about 230 kids that day in the cafeteria.
Yeah. And then that brings us to, where we are now with different things. So I know the high school is having a tree auction that many of you guys may be familiar with. I'm pretty sure that this is the 6th annual year that they had it. So Interact Club, we were able to really get involved in this. So we came up with a Grinch-themed tree, which is Stink, Stink, Stunk, which we thought for 2021, which kind of, symbolizes the year that we've been going through, masks and different things like that. So we were like, let's kind of decorate this. So we added kind of a theme with the Grinch, some different cardboard cutouts to stick in there. So if they win the tree, we kind of got the whole community involved in this. So on a next slide, there's going to be a holiday event. No, you're fine. I was just going to say coming up. There's going to be a holiday event. You can go back. That we sold the community tickets for the tree auction that people were able to kind of put in here and be a part of. Can you go back to the last slide? Perfect. Okay, so in addition to the tree, whoever wins gets 5 $20 gift cards that are just displayed up there. So we thought that would be a good way to kind of extend it out to the community. So DECA's tree auction is who holds it. Yeah, that's our Grinch tree. So then that leads me into this. So this is the second South Park Shops event that was hosted this year, but it's for the holiday event. So we hosted a booth at South Park Shops holiday event with items for sale and a dog race that we decided to do for free just as a way to get the kids engaged, in the community, just come and play a couple games. And we have a couple members down here on the right who are very active in selling our pretzels. these kids will do anything when it comes to our club. So they were walking up and down selling chocolate-covered pretzels for about probably 30 minutes at the least. They're just walking up and down. So that was a great thing to do there. So then our Smiles from Sean, going back to that foundation, we did sell his t-shirts to continue to help support his nonprofit organization for childhood cancer. And we donated that money from specifically what he made from those t-shirts and awarded him $500 this past
We're gonna
week.
do that
Actually, no,
tomorrow.
this week. Yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow. So $500 we'll be awarding tomorrow for Sean and his cause. And then future events that we have coming up, just a couple things that are exciting. Tomorrow we're having our holiday party. Specifically what we're doing is we're wrapping Adopt-A-Family gifts. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with that cause, but we go out and we buy gifts and we're going to wrap them for all the families. So that we're going to do that and just have a couple games and just really let the kids enjoy themselves and kind of award them for all the hard work that they've been putting in these past couple months. We have wreath placing for veterans that we're going to be doing this Saturday, which is really exciting. And then we're also going to kind of expand the horizons into more foundations that we can really get involved in, one of which is cystic fibrosis that we really want to branch off into. I know we have a member who also fights that, and actually a teacher at the high school, Mrs. Kamek, who is also fighting that, who is involved in organizations that are for that, and she is generously going to come and speak on January 5th, which will be our next general membership meeting after the 15th about that cause. So those are just a couple future events, and I'd say, just to touch up for my comments, at least from Mrs. Gensler, that a big goal that I just have is for the students, you know, both young and those in my grade, just to really establish a passion for service and a passion for understanding their character and kind of what they value in the world. And I think that's just the biggest takeaway coming from me as president, is that just I want to leave a mark that they're able to get involved and make a difference just day by day by even the littlest things. So that's kind of where I want to leave my impact, and just hope that we have a pretty good future. I kind of want to expand internationally come end of the year, work with other Interact clubs in the area, and just expand to more service. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. You have one. Okay.
There. Yeah, I think it shows just in those slides how successful they have been in the past few months. All that you've seen there really has only been started since the beginning of the school year, leading up until tomorrow when we're going to be wrapping over $1,000 worth of gifts for 2 families here in our community for Adopt-A-Family, and awarding Sean the $500 that we've raised from the t-shirt sales. So tomorrow is going to be an exciting day to give back and to celebrate all that we've done with our holiday party, and kind of wrap up our time for 2021, and look forward to many hopeful and charitable events come next year. So thank you again for letting us come in. It's a long night and we appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Thank you.
So, what's that? So, next item. So, yes, Kevin, you can take over. This item is to cover the update on the feasibility study with Hayes Design Group. Yeah. He's on vacation.
Additional? No, we did 11. I thought it was another 20.
I think we're good. I think everybody, so you should have one packet that has the agenda and also the option 12 information. And then there's another packet with the option 9 information. So welcome to the new board members. Good to be with you. Good to be with everybody. Well, what we're going to do tonight is go over 2 options, and each option has some variables within it. But to give some context, this will go in your binders. For the 2 board members, new board members that don't have them, we will be getting you binders. But you'll be able to take out the option 9 section of the binder and just replace it with what we gave you tonight. And then also include the option 12 in that same section after option 9 in the order of the feasibility study. So the one thing we wanted to do quickly is just go over the key criteria used to evaluate the master plan options. And again, more of a reminder for the board members that are continuing and also maybe some help for the board members that are new. The one is, and again, a complete list of the criteria can be found in your feasibility study. But just to hit some of the highlights, there's criteria related to educational curriculum. And again, one of the things that was the genesis for this study was trying to achieve more equity in educational spaces as well as support spaces in the schools, K-8, and particularly in the existing elementary schools. And that also includes parity in class sizes among the schools, facilitating STEAM and sharing staff resources, achieving a 21st century school status in your educational facilities. Criteria related to building systems and site include addressing any deficiencies in existing buildings that would be renovated that were identified in the study, and also addressing site issues including parking, bus and car circulation, outdoor spaces, and as well as service to the building. And then in terms of financial considerations, when we looked at the criteria for the master plan options, we looked at, again, the initial capital improvement cost, also the impact on the annual debt service and borrowing capacity, and then also the impact of increasing or decreasing staff costs for the district. So quick overview with that. And then we had applied those to all of the options we had developed. And the recommended options, we developed more detailed narratives. So what we're going to do tonight is go over option 12 and option 9 and then take you through the narratives that will show you more detailed information. So if you want to turn to the next page, we're actually going to take the next section and just pause. That's the narrative. We're going to actually come back to that after we show you some of the site plans and orient you to the option 12. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you, Kevin. So on the screen right now is the program that we came up with for the K-5 Elementary Center. So just looking at the basically the population of the school for those students, and then just breaking it down into how many different classrooms we would need, and the sizes of those classrooms. So for instance, you need multiple cafeterias, multiple gymnasiums, those types of things. So if we scroll down this document, you'll see that we come up with a net square footage based on the quantity of spaces and the size of those spaces. And then I'll get you to a total net square footage. And then we apply a grossing factor to that accounts for bathrooms, hallways, storage spaces, mechanical rooms, restrooms. That grossing factor at this point is on the conservative side, just to account for some things that we'll work through with the admin if we proceeded to move forward with this. So we wanted to make sure we were comfortable with the overall size of the building at 250,000 square feet that would be appropriate moving forward for a K-5 center to house the approximate 1,700 students, 1,800 students that Bethel Park would have for those grades. The next slide, please. So moving forward, what I'm going to talk about next is the option 12 at the high school site. So we actually looked at several options at this and talked those through with the administration. We brought 2 of those options to consider with the board tonight that we felt were the strongest of the options that were considered. So this is just looking at the existing conditions for the high school. A couple things to note, really, when talking about existing conditions, is just the topography, the slope of the site. For those that can imagine it, Church Road, coming up past the high school there, comes up fairly significantly as you approach the administration building, from right to left on the screen. And then there's the nice hillside as you come up to the practice field and the baseball field, and then up to the parking lot, and then up where the mouse is currently moving to the artificial fields, and then the softball field. So there's,
Can we just,
yep.
just if anybody's having trouble reading the aerial, just point out the high school. We can start with the stadium top right, and then high school, which is where the mouse is right now. And you can see the 2 parking lots, one above, right, left, and then you've got the practice fields above that, and then to the far left you have IMS. Just wanted, and Blackhawk Drive in the middle. Blackhawk Drive you'll see in the schemes that becomes pretty important. Thank you.
Thank you, Kip. So if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about option 12A. So if you could just scroll down a little bit more to get, just go down a little bit lower. There we go. So option 12A is looking at putting the elementary center, which is, in this case, given the small footprint available to it, it would be a 5-story building where the practice field, for the practice football field and the baseball field are. We'd actually look at putting the building into the hillside, similar to what the high school concept is. And you'd have 5 stories along Church Road that would be above grade, but it would be about 3.5 stories above grade along Blackhawk Drive, where the bus drop-off is. So if we're on Blackhawk Drive, you can see those yellow boxes. They represent buses. That's the bus loop. So that's where buses would drop off and pick up each day. That's at the top. And if we go to the other side of the site, that's the car drop-off. So this would be an area that we still need to work through if this moved forward with the municipality. Obviously, there'd be some challenges given the grades, given just access and some of the other things, given the amount of traffic Church Road sees. But this is just kind of a concept of how we could separate bus and car traffic here. In addition, we kept the large flat area where the ball field is as play fields, K2 playground and a 3-5 playground and some paved play area as well. And then also tried to provide a service area that was a little bit more back of house. So that's over towards the high school for, Kevin just referenced where that is. One of the challenges with this scheme is just the proximity of the buildings. The high school and this new elementary center are both very large buildings, and they're really close together. So it's just something to be aware of as this scheme kind of developed and takes shape. Another thing with this scheme, we didn't add any parking. There wasn't space to accommodate additional parking here. So this is presuming we could make the existing parking work without any additional changes. The last thing I kind of like to point out on the high school site.
Could I just ask one question on that?
Yep,
That's,
certainly.
to me, that stood out as the biggest challenge because I think the parking lots are pretty full today, just with the high school level of, student drivers and staff. It seems like, bringing all the staff from NAMS and every elementary school is going to be a huge problem for parking.
That's a good point. The other is the municipality is going to require we add parking probably for the K5 center. So we just, again, need to work through that if this moves forward.
Yeah.
So we did talk with the administration. I mean, there are options, whether it be a parking garage or something, if we need to get that creative, but we just need to figure all that out as if this moves forward.
Right.
The last thing I just wanted to touch on here that I was going to was the site is a conservation district, which just has a different set of requirements, including some height limitations and some things that, again, would need to be worked through with the municipality. So there's a handful of things here that would have to just be talked through and worked out. So just need some development. So pivoting to option 12B, we actually looked at how to separate the buildings further apart to try and give some more identity between them. So if you can go to the next slide for us. So in this case, we rotated the elementary center. So again, it's 5 stories. So you can come down Church Road, you'll turn on to Blackhawk Drive, And Blackhawk Drive actually passes underneath, so there's a breezeway. So you'd have a drop-off for the buses, and then to the left of that, and I know you'll see the parent drop-off, so there's a separate car area for them to drop off as well. Again, trying to use the flat play area for the ball fields, playgrounds, and the paved play area as well. The biggest challenge with this, we think, is we actually took parking away. So again, that parking comment that we talked about a little bit before. So that's definitely a challenge, is there's just not a lot of land for the size of what this needs to be to house, that many students. So, next slide, please. So we're going to change sites. So we also looked at a K-5 at how the Neil Armstrong Middle School campus could work. So again, the existing building is the large mass on the right of the page. It has a large, it's not circular drive, but a curved driveway that dips way down on the site. This site also has some significant grading to it, stepping from the highest points, which would be in the lower right of the page, to the left middle, kind of, and it kind of just steps down as you go. So just something to be aware of, and we'll talk about a little bit when we look at the concept on the next page. So if you can advance that. So looking at a K-5 building, one of the big things we had to think about was the middle school needs to stay in capacity, while the building is constructed. So that limited to where we could place the building. So we tried to take advantage of the flatter area that's on the north side of your site, placing the K-5 building there with some playgrounds and play spaces behind along that property. You see to the top of the page, there's a grass play field as well as the play areas and the paved area. You can see the gymnasiums could also be directly adjacent to it. And then there are two academic wings in this. One would be a 2-story classroom wing, and the other would be a 3-story classroom wing. We placed the 3-story classroom wing basically coming south, which is into the lowest area of the site, trying to, again, take advantage of that hillside, allowing us to, build the building into it so the kids would have direct access, onto that play space if desired. Again, we have stormwater retention there on the left. And then once the building was up, we would then look to remove Neil Armstrong Middle School. We'd build the paved parking lot. You could add another grass field. And then that kind of sets up how the circulation will work. So you have a separate parent drop-off of that paved parking lot, and then the bus loop to the left of that. So just kind of see how those two things would interact. And then we tried to hide the service, to feed the cafeterias, those types of things around the back of the building. So just out of view as much as possible.
Where would staff be parking during that period?
During which period, I'm sorry?
The period that you have the building up and you still have the existing NAMS building?
A temporary lot would have to be worked out. But it's a great question. Next slide. And then the last site we looked at in relation to a K-5 elementary center was the Ben Franklin site. The challenges here are the site in comparison to the other two is just much smaller, so it has its own unique circumstances for that, but it's also the neighborhood itself is a little bit tighter than the other contexts, so that those streets are a little bit tighter for the bus traffic that would be needed. But if we go to the next page, I think we can kind of see what's going on with this one. So again, this elementary center K-5 would only be 3 stories, which is a little bit nicer in scale than the 5 stories that potentially would be at the high school, but still very large for this neighborhood. We would need to have the building come a little bit into that hillside towards the bottom of the page. You can see some of the trees are grayed out a little bit along that line. There's a little toe slope right there. So that'd have to all be removed. The play areas again behind the building kind of protected, from the traffic at the top of the page. And then we'd actually separate the car and bus traffic with cars to the right, parent drop off in the parking lot, and then the bus loop as well. Again, this concept was trying not to remove the existing school while the building is constructed, and then having to build the building after. So again, some temporary parking would have to be worked out if this concept moves forward.
And I'll just mention that if you go more slowly through the pages that you have as part of your packet, it lists some of the advantages and challenges of each site that we've just gone over, so you can read more about that.
So with that, I'm going to actually turn it back over to Kevin, and he's going to talk you through the narrative.
All right, so if you would go back to the option, it's kind of again, you can see it up on the screen, option 12, new K-5 elementary school. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Again, the overview of this option is 6th grade will be moved to IMS. A new K-5 elementary center would be built, and then the independent school would be 6, 7, and 8. And then, of course, you'd have your high school. In terms of building capacity projections, really the quick summary of that is that we're just looking at about 1,716 students being the capacity of the building that we would build, where we would be basing it on 22 kids per classroom. That could be modified. So, again, the board has talked previously about perhaps in K1 and K1 and 2 having 20 kids as a maximum in the classrooms, and that's fine. The capacity is really set more at kind of 25 students per classroom. Anyways, down below in terms of analysis of potential cost savings, what we did was looked at, again, if you take 5 elementary schools, you consolidate into 1, you'll need less staffing in the K-5 than you would have now. The reduction can be obtained through attrition, over a course of a number of years and retirements, et cetera. But you can see down below the type of teacher or staff position, the annual savings, which would be both salary and benefits, and then the total cost of those savings. If you turn the page, the additional potential savings, again, special education services can also be consolidated. You would be able to staff 1 building with less people than you're currently staffing 5. Bus drivers, same thing. There would be a need for less drivers if you had 1 building versus covering 5. So in total, at the top of the page, you'll see total possible annual savings related to staff is projected in the range of $3.3 million to $3.4 million per year. In addition to that, you'll have utility and energy savings. We're saying that's, again, you take 5 relatively inefficient older buildings, replace it with 1 new, more energy efficient building. We're saying that just a rough estimate, about $140,000 per year in energy savings, maintenance savings added to that, and then miscellaneous related savings. So again, at the very middle of the page, you'll see in bold that preliminary conceptual cost savings for option 12 would range in between $3.5 to $3.7 million annually. Okay, so that's your potential savings. If you reduce the staff, if you and you are going to look at energy and other savings. Now, you then have to look at what are your additional costs going to be. And essentially, if you kind of flip to the next page, we can get to that quickly. In option 12A and B, you've got a new K-5 center. It's going to be about $83 to $86 million. At the additional campus site development at the high school property, and then that would include some of the driveway and parking changes and stormwater, about $2 to $4 million. So you're in the $85 to $90 million range. If it was at the NAMS property, it really doesn't change much. It's still in the $85 to $90 million range. Relative to that, what we did when we were looking at various options, when we were keeping, in some of the options, we were keeping existing buildings, et cetera, we did look at what you would project having to spend on your existing buildings if they were kept. So in the middle portion of the second page, you see each of the buildings that would no longer be school facilities and the monies you would save in there. So that's just a reference point. More importantly, you're looking at now $85 to $90 million. The financing costs, which again we worked with Doug and the district's financial advisor, that's going to be about $3.2 million a year to borrow $90 million. So the net of that, if you take the cost savings, combine it with your annual costs, and again, it is important to note in terms of your annual cost, that's based on a 24-year bond issue, so a little longer, but it gets you to about 3.2. So what you have is a net decrease in cost to the district in your annual operating budget between $300,000 and $500,000 looking at the K-5 option, okay? Now, the only other important amount to look at would be, we have that note, please note, you're also looking at a major renovation to IMS. We've estimated that at about $35 million. The borrowing cost for that would be about $1.25 million per year. That is, if you borrowed $35 million. So when you look at that, your net would be an increase of about $750,000 to $950,000 a year to move forward with K-5 option. That all makes sense. It's the math. Were you able to follow that? And that's all in front of you. So with that, let's just look at the other option we wanted to bring before the board was just a revised option 9A, where we had a K-3 facility at NAMS. And I'm going to turn this back over to Andrew.
Thank you, Kevin. So we wanted to take a moment to relook at the concept at the Neil Armstrong site again, just in relation to some of the comments we received from the board in the past, and want to look at what could be done.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
I just had one question on the last proposal. You mentioned 1,700 or so kids in one building?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I don't know how many students would we have in there? 1,500 or so, something like that in K through 5? Seems like a big building. Do you, in your opinion, is that practical, from an operational standpoint?
If I need to understand your question, are you saying that a building that would house that many kids?
Yeah.
Is it necessary to have that capacity, or is it necessary, or
is it practical to configure it that way? It seems like a large building. Does it
a very
become
large
kind of
building.
Overwhelming? Does it, from the student experience? Are any other districts doing? Are we aware of other buildings around here that are that large?
Can we have a reference point? I'm sorry. Mr. Hayes, what is the high school square footage?
The high school square footage is about 300,000.
And you're saying, I believe you said this. 250,000. So we're.
Right.
For just perspective, that people see what that would look like. I mean,
Yeah. It is a big building. I think there's two answers to your question. Well, there's three answers. First question, is there anything else like this being built? Not this size in the area. There are K-5 and there are K-6 facilities. Seneca Valley is building a K-6 right now, but they don't expect to have more than 1,400 kids in it.
Okay.
There are also K-5 facilities that have less than that number in it for districts of smaller size. So I think that's one answer. The second question, in terms of what would a 250,000 square foot building be like for K-6, I can respond to it. We can respond to it from an architectural standpoint. I think we can also need to ask the educators. How would they look at it from an education standpoint? So I'll put the first flag in the ground. It's a big building, so it's not too far out of order to say how would any of the parents in the district feel like sending their kindergartner, their second grader, or their fifth grader to the high school for 6 years.
Right.
I mean, it's a big building. And so we can, and you can design a building to break down the scale, but at the end of the day, it's still a big building. So once the kids are in the building, again, they can go to a wing, and the wing can be of a smaller scale, and we would certainly recommend that, probably in a K-5 facility, having probably 3 wings. In the case of, at the high school, you'd probably be looking at a floor being a wing, because you're going to have to, because of the tightness of the site, you would need to have it kind of vertically oriented. But they could have their own floor, their own areas. That would help. But you're still going to have, some fairly large gymnasiums, some fairly large cafeterias and the like, and it remains a large building. Educationally, maybe I can ask Dr. Walsh if you could comment.
Well, that was exactly the conversation we were having, was what's a day like, and we kind of got hung up by the idea of going up and down 5 flights of stairs to go to lunch and going to phys ed or to arts or other specials. As much as the wings would keep you in the neighborhood for your academics, you're still moving out into that larger building for the rest of the day, or for the off-team, off-class subject matter. So that worried us. That would be a lot. And if you, in order to make it honestly, we feel good about the classrooms and the wings and the smallness of a neighborhood on each floor. It's just the bigness of the building to move between floors.
Right, to
and
get to
taking
the,
kids.
some of the, the special subject areas like gym and
Yeah,
things
right,
like that,
taking
where you
them-
have one place, cafeteria.
Right.
Yeah.
And another point that, that we got hung up on is the fact that the way he just described it, there would be 2 floors underneath Black Hawk Drive, like down below grade on Black Hawk Drive, much like the high school where half the first floor and second floor are underground.
Right.
So I don't know, how many spaces can we put back in that area to not have windows?
Right.
Maybe, but classrooms, art rooms, I'm not sure we want that in that space.
Right. Yeah,
Sure.
okay,
Any-
yeah, sorry to
Any other
interrupt.
questions? Or Okay, we'll continue with,
All right, so talking again about the K-3 elementary center, so as I was mentioning, we were trying to address some of the comments we'd heard in the past from the board about where the building was originally sited, which is basically where we're showing the paved play area and the 3 to 5 play area, which is the lowest part of this property. So we looked at, again, putting the building more similar to what we did with the K-5 option up on that flatter part of the site, and then trying to address the play spaces, down in the lower parts that where we had the building originally. Again, just trying to get the building up a little bit in grade, get a little closer to Neil Armstrong Middle School for that relationship between the 2 buildings, creating some, pedestrian connections between the 2 buildings, and then taking advantage of some parking in that drive aisle. So you still have the bus drop-off, you have a separate parent drop-off lane. So you're able to isolate those a little bit. You have your service areas. But one of the biggest things we looked at, because we did talk about with the administration, can we get the K-3 center directly adjacent to the middle school? And when we looked at that, the problem was it got rid of that play area. If you see that play area just north of Neil Armstrong on the page, that ends up getting kicked away to the left. And then those students who still need those activities end up having a really long travel distance to get to them. There's nowhere to get it close. And the property, if you can see it there, is pinched. It was just really hard to fit the building in appropriately with the service and the drop-off and all of those things we would need, that we just felt this was the better solution than trying to figure out how to fit it in really tight to the middle school.
and then if you would, take out the narrative section of the option 9. And again, in a similar way, and we can go through the tree quickly, the building capacity would be about 1,000 students for K-3. Again, if you continue to scroll down, the potential savings, we've identified, again, the staffing, and then the next page with special education, bus drivers. The consolidation, again, allows you to reduce, not quite as much as a K-5, but still quite significantly. So here you'd have your total possible savings from staff reductions to about $3.075 million to $3.2 million. You'd have about $95,000 in energy and utility annual savings. You've got $50,000 to $100,000 of maintenance annual savings. So in total, you're going to have about $3.25 to $3.5 million of annual savings with this option. Then you kind of look at the cost. So again, if we flip to the next page, the third page, again, you're looking at a new K-3 center being about $43 million total cost. To that, and just in order to kind of be able to compare option 9A to option 12, we then added the renovation cost to NAMS, about $16 million. And again, one of the reasons why that's a lower number, NAMS is a very big building, but again, particularly for the new board members, there was millions of dollars, to tune about $7 million, put into NAMS mechanical and electrical systems about 6 years ago. So anyways, $60 million. So you're about a $59 million project from K through 8 in this option. And then in option 9C, which we looked at the Ben Franklin site previously, that was about $60 million. The reason it's more is that there's just additional site costs and demolition costs at Ben Franklin that you would not have at NAMS. So if you go down again, you can see some of the renovation savings that you would not be spending on your existing buildings that would be, if this went forward. And then the financing cost down to below. Here it's a 22-year bond, so you'd be paying it off sooner. And it's about a $2.15 million per year cost to borrow $59 to $60 million. So your net annual costs for the K3 and NAMS option would be a decrease of approximately $1.1 million to $1.35 million a year in your annual operating budget. Again, you then have to look at the $35 million and the cost of borrowing at IMS, which is about 1.2. So in this case, the savings from the K5 approach in the IMS would almost be a wash in terms of your borrowing costs and your savings. Okay? So that kind of quickly overviews option 12, option 9A. And at this point, again, if any questions or if the board would like to talk about the options among yourselves.
No, that looks really good. I mean, you laid it out really clear. You really have. It's a good comparison. And you went back and reevaluated option 9. That's good.
Mr. Hayes, so with all the plans and that, still the monkey wrench is going to be what the municipality is going to allow and not allow? Because the property down here, obviously, we're in the conservation district. That's, like you said, brings its own different set of guidelines. And again, none of this is, we have not consulted with them at this time.
No, we have not met with the municipality to review any master plan yet. No. But that's correct. I think the parking, again, the conservation district is, I mean, those who live in the district know that it was named and made a conservation district because of the issues with water pretty much to the south of the high school site. When we did the high school, and our firm designed that, we were actually fortunate because the 8 buildings of the old high school were spread out. They were typically low-rise buildings, and they had a very large amount of concrete walks between them, which again is an impervious surface. So we actually were able to design the new high school. It actually had a smaller impervious footprint than the previous high school, and so we didn't have a lot of stormwater issues. In this case, we're taking a pervious field and we're putting a pervious field and putting a building on it. So you're going to have some stormwater. Again, it can be addressed. It's going to be a challenge. So I think that we had a lot of issues with the municipality with regards to the turning lane coming in off of Church. Again, and everybody knows there's about a 300-foot turning lane that had to be put because of the amount of traffic that the high school was going to generate. I think that's going to be a challenge. And then again, Mr. Christensen brought up the parking. I mean, that's going to be, so yeah, there's going to be challenges.
And again, same thing at Neal, maybe not obviously on a lesser scale, that we also have to worry, concerned about water runoff and so forth, because again, we're taking a few fields away down there.
Yes, there would be, although there you have, again, the lowest area of the site would pretty much become your retention pond for storm water, and you can look, even if you had to bury tanks, you could bury them under those fields, which is more straightforward, a little easier.
Again, though, to follow up on that, we would have these same issues at Ben Franklin, correct?
Ben Franklin, you would have just as many. I think again, we named them, the biggest challenges are we would need to take Clark Street and make it basically a through road, and that neighborhood is not used to the amount of traffic and so both the municipality and maybe neighbors are going to have issues with that. In addition, we are going to take current, wooded area and we're going to make those bald and build on them. So there's going to be some stormwater issues with that. And so, yes, I think Ben Franklin would definitely be very challenging.
In that field down below, Franklin is,
It's
is
always,
wor- is
yeah.
worse than NAMS, I think. It's-
Yeah, I think that's Marshland even worse. Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. I guess the question I have is process, timing, how we move forward on a decision. And so, Mr. Modrak, is that something that we should probably have a special facilities meeting to, because I think there'd be a lot of discussion around this.
I think at this point is, you know, and the borough's aware, the municipality's aware of our plans and sometimes we have to have a sit-down and move forward with them. And so having a meeting, maybe for a facilities committee, having to review all this stuff and having some input from the municipality, what conceptually what they would like to see or not see based on their zoning laws, because we're not reviewing them at this point in time.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, because I'm just looking, or side note, the traffic coming up, or we have a turn-off lane with if going with the option with having the building down here, you know, taking more of that chunk on Church Road for a drive turn-off lane, and how do we put all these buses and where we, you know, I think we have a lot to discuss and see what the municipality needs to say.
Maybe we could, you know how for the strategic plan, we had a really crisp set of milestones, dates, you know, kind of a project plan of what we had to work towards. Can we come up with something like that for this also? So, you know, let's pick a date. We want to be, you know, in business 3 years from now. Start working backwards. You know, what are those decisions that we have to do to get to that point, you know, of how long does it take for construction? When do we have to make decisions up to that? Start working our way backwards to figure out what do we need to have done by February next year or whatever it is.
I asked Mr. Hayes a quick question. If I'm correct, you guys were involved with Peter Township High School construction, correct?
We were.
And again, that involved also municipality on runoff and PennDOT dealing with road configuration. What
Yes.
kind of time frame did you guys had worked on that?
Once we had, you know, a proposed design, including stormwater, it's almost a year. It was almost a year. Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately what you're going to need to do, whatever option proceeds, is, you know, go before the municipality, their engineers review it, and then you also have to go before the county conservation district. They review it as well. It takes a long time. Now, I think what you're talking about, though, is perhaps just a preliminary meeting with the municipality just to say, hey, these are some ideas we're talking about. Could we maybe meet with you and your borough engineer to see kind of what issues you might have? And I think
thank you. That's exactly what I was kind of thinking. Knock some of these hurdles down before we get to make a proposal to them.
Yes, and that's what we typically do that. You know, and again, and if the board feels it would be helpful to get some feedback before you decide on which master plan, and that's certainly possible too. I mean, we can talk to them about whichever ones you think are most viable or most desirable and hear that input. But yeah, they're usually very willing to do that. And again, let's understand what you're going to get from that. You're not going to get, you know, firm commitments like, yes, we will allow that, or we won't. They'll simply say, look, this is going to be an issue, this might be an issue, you know, we typically don't grant variances for this, or we typically don't, you know, that type of, but it may help you.
So do you have, or as a part of our binder, maybe we have, or maybe we've done this internally, but do we have a set of milestones that we've laid out? Because that really helped us in the strategic plan. If we take this one meeting at a time, we'll never get to where we're going. In fact, we won't even know where we're going, you know? So if we can kind of lay this out in terms of a, you know, kind of a plan of we want to be here by this date, start working backwards, and then, you know, that meeting may be the next natural step. I don't know, but I'd sure like to be able to see what this looks
Well,
like.
that's thinking we have a conversation with the municipality so we can start getting that time frame set up.
I think more from a construction standpoint, so we've got construction, financing, design, you know, everything that we have to kind of work our way backwards to say, when do certain decisions have to be made?
We sort of had February in mind.
Okay.
That was in order to be 3 years down the road, cutting ribbons
Mhm.
and moving buses. It's getting close. We're talking
Okay.
February at this point, because we'd have to even start with an architectural search and going all the way through the entire process. So
Okay.
yeah, we would certainly be open to a facilities meeting, public meeting for feedback, as well as sit down with the municipality with the idea that we're going to make a commitment in February. I think that's
Yeah.
the timeline you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean,
Program it out from there.
I would like to see a plan of these key decisions that take us up to 3 years from now, cutting ribbons.
Okay.
Because, otherwise, if we just start having meetings, again, we won't know kind of where we're going and when we're going to get there. So we need to have a plan laid out where we can hold ourselves accountable that these decisions will be made by this time, and then we'll have confidence that we're on the right path.
Well, we got it. I think they can give us that little format we need.
Yeah.
But like Dr. Walsh said, it's February, so we got a lot of work in January to clarify what
Yeah.
we're doing from
So
these.
who can lay out that plan for us, that timing, that project plan?
Well, we'll definitely work on it.
Yeah.
Something that,
We can work with district administrators. I think, one of the things that maybe needs to be asked is, does the board need any more information, or if you do, what information do you feel you need to decide on which master plan option?
I would agree. I think, timeline can be built. I think we can work with the architects and the construction manager to build the timeline, but it's really going to be it's going to matter what option you're leaning toward. Like, are you leaning toward putting it on the high school site? Or are you leaning toward putting it on the NAM site, the Ben Franklin site? Without that, then we're kind of building timelines for multiple options, and that's...
Well, that might be
It's not
part of the
gonna
timeline,
Yeah.
you tell us, if we're gonna have this, if we're gonna cut ribbons in 3 years, do we need to make that decision in January, February, or what?
I think you need to make that option, the choice on what option you want, no later than January, because that will help us lay out all the critical dates that you have to meet.
Okay.
But
And
I
then
guess
what-
the question is, what information does the board need at this point to make that decision on what option you're leaning toward, or
Okay.
you would like us to pursue?
Well, kind of sticking with that theme, working backwards from being able to make a decision, what do we need to do before that? Do we need to have a facilities meeting? Do we need to have public comment? Those are the kinds of things that we need to kind of work backwards from whatever that milestone is.
I think it's a good idea to have the facilities meeting in early January and
Yeah.
get a recommendation from the people on that committee on what option you think is the most feasible.
Right.
And
I would-
put together the pros and cons and the costs as general as we can. Yeah.
I would also like to hear from the municipality and what they believe is feasible, and where the roadblocks are going to be, and where the, walls are going to be built up, that it's not feasible, because if we go down a road the month of January and the municipality comes back in May and says, no, you can't do that,
Right.
that's going to put a wrench in the 3-year plan too. So I would like, with facilities, if it can be combined, or we have to have 2 meetings, I apologize that we would have to have 2 meetings, but to get that information, that's critical right now.
Yeah.
We all heard what happened with the high school, so we don't need that issue again either.
Right. So, working backward, that's kind of, we're kind of going through this process naturally, working our way backwards. So what you just said means that we probably need to have a plan review with the municipality before we have the facilities meeting. So that probably needs to happen first week of January.
I think even with the new board members who've been staying abreast before they took their seats, what direction we're moving. And I think that's a general consensus that we're moving in this direction. It's just now, by the available property, we only have 3 possible choices. And then what do those properties give us, and with our partner with the municipality? So whether we schedule a couple meetings in January and have Dr. Welch's office work with the municipal manager over there and starting getting that going, so we could have that deadline for the second or third week of February saying, well, here's our choice. Here's why. We have the public meeting to make reassure everybody towards the end of January, and then we start moving forward in February.
Yeah.
But again, we're repeating to move forward on something and have the borough come back and we're fighting, wasting time. I think maybe this time we get with them ahead of it. Last time there was a little bit too much
Sure.
fighting going back and forth.
We just kind of went through this process, kind of working our way backwards to figure out some of these milestones. So I don't know if that's possible for us to come up with, those high-level milestones that you can kind of hold us accountable to make the right decisions at the right time. Otherwise, it'll just drag on.
If we're making a decision in February, whatever date he wants to pick and go 3 years out, then we have to have all our information by then, which means we start this week talking to municipality and start scheduling something even before the end of this year if they're available.
Could we add something to the meeting? Also, when we're talking about roads, buildings, sites, things like that, but how about the educational component? Looking at advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, we were looking at advantages and disadvantages of the different sites, but maybe advantages and disadvantages of the educational program along with these buildings.
Are you talking about the facilities meeting that we'll have?
Yeah.
And so every proposal would look at, construction cost, operating cost, educational experience, advantages.
I think clarification on that is, do we do a 5-story building, a 3-story building? What does...
Or when you're looking at if it's a K through 3 building or K through 5 building.
Or a K through 5 building, what's the input from the district and the parents on that also? So that would be the academic component, maybe not as much structural, but...
Again, and if we're talking about the student experience and the curriculum part of it, that ties into the strategic plan. So we should be having those discussions. It should be part of the decision process, I think.
Yeah, I think
especially those
that's
stakeholders.
How you phrase it there probably makes sense. If we can kind of compare these relative to the components of a strategic plan, which helps, it needs to be tied to our strategic plan. How do we, better, the things that we've laid out in the strategic plan with each of these options? I think that becomes the criteria.
And that's what, again...
Otherwise, it becomes emotional. It becomes random. So if we've laid out a strategic plan that we think is important, that is keys to our success in the future, and so anything we do related to facilities should be measured against that.
And Mr. Christensen, that again is where the curriculum committees that we had assembled and the student experience committees, along with the facilities committees, all become crucial in
Right.
getting that information back to us again.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hayes, in our submission to the municipality with the site plan, we also have to have our own traffic studies done and so forth. Right?
Yes, and again, that's a dialogue with the municipality in that they'll look at your proposed plans and then they'll come back and tell you if you need a traffic study or you do not, or if you need to do this engineering or that engineering. So, yeah. But ultimately, before you're going to get any permit,
right,
they're going to need to review their entire checklist, which is extensive.
Okay, any other questions? I think the action items are, if we can get a facilities meeting sometime in January with the purpose of evaluating these options, comparing them, having public discussion, and then we probably would need a board vote on the option in February. I don't know, I'm just thinking about, again, what are these steps we have to go through to get to a point that says, here's the path.
And then obviously, the time frame they have by past experience, where our end date is, for it to be 2025 opening a building or 2026 opening a building.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next topic on the agenda, and I'm so sorry we kept this group waiting so long. Student government is,
I think the students dropped off.
John, okay, good. Get some sleep.
I'm sure they're doing
It
their
is a school
homework.
night.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they're doing their homework.
Okay, sorry about how late this became. PTO, PTA, Tiffany, are you on the line?
Hi, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I have the PTO, PTA committee reports for you. I'm going to start with Abraham Lincoln. Service projects continue to run strong at Abraham Lincoln Elementary. The library is collecting new and gently used hardcover children's books geared toward ages 5 and under that will benefit Reading Ready Pittsburgh until December 17th. Families at Lincoln also donated 145 toys for Stop-A-Bus. And thank you to everyone who participated in the Scholastic Pajamas Drive. Sarah's Candy Pickup will be Wednesday, December 15th from 2:30 to 5:30 in the front lobby. Last weekend, they held the Snowball Express. Students were able to holiday shop for their families and friends in school to help our friends shop. They have a Spirit Wheel sale that continues the entire school year. If you are interested in Bethel Parkware, please contact the Lincoln PTO. Students had fun with Crazy Hair Day and are looking forward to the Christmas Spirit Week. The PTO decorated Lincoln's lobby to keep staff and students in the holiday spirit. In lieu of the Christmas winter parties, the PTO is preparing treat bags for the students on their last day of school before break. There may also be a special visitor that day. Lincoln PTO wishes everyone a wonderful holiday. And next is Memorial Elementary. Memorial Elementary PTA has been hard at work trying to bring in holiday cheer. They finished their Holiday Stairs fundraiser, which is always a big hit. On December 8th through the 10th, they were able to hold their holiday shop, which was a huge success and allowed students to Christmas shop for their families. This past Saturday, December 11th, they sponsored a holiday and bowling party at the Craft House in Baldwin. Any family who wished to participate came to decorate cookies, meet Santa Claus, play games, do crafts, and get discounted bowling. Later on in the evening of the 11th, they had their second annual light up night where almost 200 luminaries were lit around Memorial's property, and Santa Claus came out to wave to the kids. They're now preparing for holiday break. Even though they aren't having normal holiday parties, the PTA is providing snacks, games, and crafts for teachers to do their own celebration. They're looking forward to ringing in the new year, starting off 2022 with their yearly pepperoni roll fundraiser and the readathon. George Washington Elementary is next. Cookies with Santa was held outdoors in the evening of December 3rd with record attendance. It was a very fun evening and all students had a wonderful time. The holiday gift shop was held this past week and went well. George Washington is hosting a virtual gingerbread contest. Winners will receive a $50 gift card. The holiday gift tree benefiting Abby's Toy Drive will end on December 13th. Many donations were collected. There was a holiday-themed dress-up day on December 1st and multiple other holiday-themed dress-up days planned for this month. They wrapped up their candle and Sarah sales last week. The PTO is selling pop grams to parents to be delivered to their students during the classroom parties. Their poinsettia sale has also wrapped up, and the proceeds of the fundraiser will be used to help a local family in need with groceries and holiday gifts. A teacher-staff breakfast will be planned for the week of December 20th. The PTO has asked each classroom teacher to pick up an item for their classroom as a classroom gift from the PTO. Teachers choose games, learning tools, and other special items. They will be delivered to each class during the week of December 20th. The holiday sing-along is planned for December 16th at Bethel Park High School. And student volunteers are working on coordinating classroom parties and gift bags with teachers who will be facilitating these parties. Neil Armstrong Middle School. An update to the NAMS bylaws is in progress for vote in January's meeting, currently in review with membership. The student store and popcorn Fridays continue to be popular. Thanks to NAMS community for donating items to sell at the school store. December school store was the most successful to date, bringing in $750. The next popcorn Friday will be held December 17th. The next school-wide fundraiser is Carol's Gifts and will begin in January. Trivia night has been moved to January and promotion has been restarted. Battle of the Books has been scheduled for February 25th and is currently being launched to both 5th and 6th grades for participation. Additional plans for spring programming are being discussed and developed, including book fair, spirit wear, and others to be announced. The PTO would like to thank all of Bethel Park families, especially the parent volunteers who continue to support the programming put in place by the PTO. And last, Independence Middle School. They held their annual craft fair and it was a huge success. All of the vendors and crafters were thrilled with the turnout. And the PTSO is thankful for everyone that came to shop. The Interact Club and students from NHS were tremendous help at the events. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Any committee reports?
We had the Parks and Rec committee meeting this past week. They had a very successful turkey trot. They wanted to specifically thank the members of the NHS who are really valuable volunteers there.
Anything else? Any other committee reports? Superintendent report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As we hit the middle of the month, it's also a good time to wish all the students, and the faculty and staff and board in our community thanks for the support through the fall semester, and we hope that the winter break and the upcoming holidays will be a joyful time for everybody. As much as the concerts have been filling our soul, we hope that the holidays will do the same. We have two presentations in addition to what you've already heard to this evening. Mr. Cromie and our curriculum supervisors will be speaking to us tonight on big things that are happening in their departments. So we'll start with Mr. Cromie and his 5 big things.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Good.
Nice short meeting, right? At the end of the year. Want to start with something, we're starting something new tonight called 5 Big Things. We just kind of go on, of course, there's always more than 5 wonderful things happening around Bethel Park. We're going to try to focus on 5, give you just kind of a flavor for some of the things that are happening here. And first one we're going to start with is who? Of course it won't. Let's see, here we go. Let's start with, okay, got it. All right, our holiday musical performances. One of the things that you may have noticed if you've been around Bethel Park at all in the past few weeks is our wonderful music students have been performing everywhere. Some of the highlights have included the Top 21 and the Symphonic Band performing at the Christmas tree lighting ceremony on December 1st, as well as the Strings Department performing on December 9th at South Hills Village Mall. They normally perform for nursing homes, but that's not possible right now. So they really did a wonderful job at South Hills Village. Drew a huge crowd, and they were really fabulous. The Top 21 has been especially busy. Over the weekend, they sang at the Community Center as part of the Community Foundation's concert series. And along with the rest of the music department, they will perform at the Senior Citizens Holiday Luncheon on Friday. And on Thursday, December 23rd, at noon, they'll be performing in the lobby at the Omni William Penn Hotel in downtown Pittsburgh. Another big thing happening this week is our annual Senior Citizens Holiday Luncheon. It's a long-standing tradition. We're expecting more than 115 guests this year. It's an RSVP event. School board members, though, are welcome if you'd like to kind of partake in it and just get an opportunity to meet with some of your constituents. It's a great opportunity also for our area senior citizens to kind of see our schools and also interact with our wonderful students. This year, too, they've added a senior rideshare program that will help transport our guests from the parking lot to the front door. So we're pretty excited about that. Next up, our third big thing is the holiday tree auction that's happening right now. The Bethel Park Chamber of Commerce and DECA have again teamed up for the 6th annual holiday tree auction. The trees are decorated by a club at the high school in collaboration with a community sponsor. The chamber solicits donations from local businesses to purchase the artificial trees. DECA recruits other clubs at Bethel Park High School to adopt the tree and decorate it with decorations that go along with their club theme or a holiday theme. Some clubs use it as a bonding experience and activity. Others use it to collect donations for their clubs. People can donate $1 towards a club and turn in for their donation. They can also complete a ticket for a tree. One lucky donor will be awarded each tree next week. They receive the tree decorations and any additional contents. And so I'd like to thank the community sponsors that have participated this year. They include Dynamic Systems, who are sponsoring the Bean and Berry tree, Visionary Federal Credit Union, which is sponsoring the Class of 24 Ways and Means Committee tree, Redford Photography, which is sponsoring the National Honor Society tree, Brentwood Bank, which is sponsoring the Art Club's tree, Paul Henny Cremation and Tributes, which is sponsoring the Early Learning Center's tree, the Coldwell Banker, which is sponsoring the Best Buddies Club, Pittsburgh Computer Solution, which is sponsoring the French Club tree, CCAC, which is sponsoring the DECA tree, Farmers Insurance, Bear Insurance, which is supporting the Pajama Pals program, Rains, which is partnering with the STAM Club, Julia James Salon, which is partnering with the Clothing, Construction, and Tailoring class, EV True Value Hardware, which is sponsoring the Interact Club's tree, Bree Treasures, which is sponsoring the Science Club, Century Heritage Federal Credit Union, which is sponsoring the SGA tree. And also we have the German tree, which was the last entrance into the whole thing. And it's actually sponsored by several sponsors, including Rowdy Barbecue, Brookside Lumber, Blue Sky Closing, Blue Line Grill, Matt Garfield's, GI Plumbing. So that's those are all the trees. If you'd like to purchase a ticket, please contact the organizations that you'll see on these trees. Also, they'll be going to local businesses in the next few days. Brings us to our next one, which is something pretty amazing. We have a third grader. You may recognize the last name. This young lady is Quinn Dovis, and she's a third grader at Franklin Elementary School, and she's on a mission to help save the Earth's aquatic life as part of her Save Our Seas fundraising campaign. She was inspired by a website of the same name, and Dovis has raised approximately $600 in just over a month, and she's still going. Our original goal was 100, then it turned to 500, and now she's past 600, and she still has a long way to go. And I saw her presentation to some of her classmates this week, and I can see why she's very passionate about it, and she was very knowledgeable about it, and it was wonderful. So if you'd like to donate yourself, you're welcome to visit the website teamseas.org. And finally, I'm pretty excited to tell you about this part, is on Friday, set your DVRs, the Ellen DeGeneres Show will be featuring an interview with Bethel Park teacher Katie Mucci. Mucci made headlines in October after she read a bedtime story to her students just one day following surgery to remove a mass from her brain. Katie's story caught the attention of none other than the Ellen DeGeneres Show. At first, it was really, she was being, I can tell you, because I was the one fielding a lot of these inquiries. She was receiving inquiries from pretty much every major news organization and even the international news organizations. And she was so gracious with her time, and she really did a fabulous job. So I was lucky enough to be part to kind of sit with her when she was interviewed by Howie Mandel. And that interview will air Friday at 3 p.m. So please set your DVRs. I think it's wonderful for a very deserving teacher. And I also think it's wonderful for Bethel Park. And of course, there are some surprises on it. And KD was, her opening acts were Michael Bublé and Pentatonic. So not too bad. That's all I have. That's 5 big things at Bethel.
Thank you, Mr. Cromie. And also, we'll turn it over to our curriculum supervisors who are going to talk about bright spots in Bethel. That would be Beth and Mandy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Mandy Figlioli. Beth and I would like to take the opportunity every month to just showcase some of the things that are going on behind the scenes that are happening to offer high-quality instruction, not only for the students, but also for the teachers, and also the many things that need to be done to keep us in compliance with PDE. Anthony, could you advance the slide for me? And one more, please. Over the summer, the board, after the recommendation of the Science Curriculum Committee, adopted the Smithsonian Science Kits for students in grades 1 through 4. And I just wanted to give you a little update on how that was going for the implementation. The teachers participated in their first in-person hands-on training at the August 18th in-service, and they were broken into grade levels and were able to train on their first kit. All of the grade levels did the Earth and Space Science kits first. So they spent a half a day together walking through the lessons in that kit and actually engaging in some of the hands-on experiences that the students would be having. We then had a second training on the November 1st in-service where they trained on the second kit, which for first and second grades was physical science and third and fourth grades were life science. I thought it was really wonderful that the Smithsonian asked us what we wanted for the training. They wanted to make sure they catered it to the teachers' needs. So we were fortunate to be able to offer 2 trainings for the teachers so far this year. We are going to be implementing new science standards in Pennsylvania. Those have not yet been passed into legislation, but fortunately the Smithsonian kits are modeled around this 3-dimensional learning that was outlined in the Next Generation Science Standards. So I feel fully confident that when those new standards go into place, that these kits will fit nicely into that framework. I also want to say I was been very impressed with how the teachers supported each other through this process. And sitting in on the grade level trainings, they were sharing things that they had created for their own classrooms with each other. And we created a Google Classroom so that we could share materials. There are some things that the curriculum suggests, like posting the focus question or the big question, group roles for the students that they can interchange and have different opportunities to participate in the lesson. So there's a lot of sharing going on, not only in those in-service trainings, but also throughout the year as the teachers are contributing to that Google site. Could you just go one more slide for me, please, Anthony? I had the opportunity to participate in a second grade science lesson. Miss Alyssa Sorello invited me in for an Earth and Space Science lesson in her second grade class. And you can see some photos of the students. The big question for this unit was, what can maps tell us about land and water on Earth? And I was really impressed with watching the lesson. The students had the opportunity to look at many different models of maps. They looked at globes, they looked at satellite images, they were creating landform models out of play. Really, this preparation, not only to understand the content, but also the pedagogy that is required from this kind of teaching. The teachers are truly facilitating these lessons and the students are actively engaged. So I want to commend the teachers and also the students. I want to thank Ms. Sorello for allowing me to visit her class, and I'm very excited to see what this curriculum does for our students and the district.
Thank you, Mandy. Hello, this is Beth Wells. I wanted to take a minute or two of your time to talk about the Act 158 graduations regulations. The Act 158 provides alternatives to Pennsylvania's statewide requirement of attaining proficiency on the 3 end-of-course Keystone exams in order for a student to achieve statewide graduation requirements. Effective with the graduating class of 2023, students have the option to demonstrate post-secondary preparedness through one of 4 additional pathways that more fully illustrate college, career, and community readiness. Anthony, can you advance the slide, please? Through various trainings, PDE has shared its findings with us, and they have stated that most students will meet the Keystone Proficiency Pathway by taking and scoring proficient on all 3 exams. Students that were enrolled in and passed what is known as a trigger course, which is the Algebra, Biology, or English 10 course, during the 1920 school year were awarded a non-numeric proficiency, which counts as a proficient test score for the Keystone Proficiency Pathway. So they have made accommodations for students that did not test during the 1920 school year in order to meet the Keystone Proficiency Pathway graduation requirement. The next way a student can meet graduation is through the composite pathway. The composite pathway does not allow for the use of the non-numeric proficient scores. Students will need to have taken all 3 tests and earned scores that total to up to a 4.452 or greater in order to earn a composite passing score. And the 3 remaining pathways rely on information other than state testing. There is a CTE concentrator pathway, which students pursuing a career in technical education to use some industry-based competency assessments and credentials in order to meet the graduation pathway. The alternative assessment pathway uses other national assessments, including the ACT, the SAT, the ASVAB, AP exams, and dual enrollment courses, along with some other items in order to meet the graduation requirements. And the last pathway is based on the collection of evidence from a variety of national assessments, dual enrollment courses, higher education plans, service learning, military enlistment, as well as other documentation of employment. So there are a variety of pathways that our our class of 2023 and beyond can use in order to meet the graduation requirements. Please be sure to see the Bethel Park website and the current course selection guide for more information. It has been my pleasure to work with the high school principals, specifically Mrs. Diana Franzak and Mr. James Fodzi, and the guidance counselors, along with Miss Jenny Katrufis, who are diligently making sure that all juniors are on at least one pathway to meet the graduation requirements. More information will be provided for students individually as needed, and we appreciate your patience as we work with the release of information regarding Keystone scores, transfer students' records, and the non-numeric proficiencies, and update all of our internal records to make sure all of our students are on a pathway to graduation. Anthony, can you advance the slide, please? Thank you very much. There are amazing things happening every day at Bethel Park, and we are looking forward to showing you a few of these each and every month. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Mr. Cromie. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. I made an error, but I'm a newbie, so I get a pass tonight. I forgot to mention the solicitor's update.
That's quite all right. So I really only had one quick report to give. On December 10th, which was last Friday, toward the end of the day, the PA Supreme Court issued a decision in the masking case, the Corman et al. Versus Department of Health case. The Supreme Court upheld the Commonwealth Court's decision that the masking order from August 31st is void, that the state did not have the authority to pass that order. And so what that means for school districts is that your health and safety plan then comes into effect rather than being bound by the order, since the order is now void. And in Bethel Park.
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now. You are connected as the host.
So
welcome, host.
You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Collins Studio web interface.
Sorry.
I'll wrap up quickly. Bethel Park's health and safety plan does require masking in all school buildings, so functionally, there's no change for Bethel Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCausland, any call-ins? None?
Not at this time.
Okay. Let's move into the business items. Mr. Scalzo, you want to take curriculum committee?
Yes.
I guess just as a, we probably should have discussed this before. Do we want to have discussion beforehand and then make a motion, or make a motion and then discuss? Does it matter?
I think preferably the person, the committee head will make that motion, and then.
It might be a little bit less clunky because we may decide to hold certain items out, and that may not come about until after we have discussion. So I would recommend we have discussion first, then kind of determine what it's not going to matter for you because you got one item, but for others that have multiple, we may want to have discussion first, then make a motion to, adopt those items.
Okay. We have one item under Curriculum Committee, school-sponsored overnight educational activities. We have DECA State Career Leadership Development Conference in Hershey, PA from February 16th through the 18th, 2022. We have 4 chaperones at a total cost of $3,536.20. We have another DECA trip, International Career Development, Atlanta, Georgia, April 22nd through April 27th, 2022. We have 4 chaperones at a total cost of $4,780. The range can go up to $5,340. Any discussion?
Just clarification, the DECA rules are the same, they're going to have to abide by the health and safety plan rules that we passed. Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one comment. I'm going to abstain from this because of a conflict of interest with one of the people here.
Okay. Well, I would like to move item 1, school-sponsored overnight educational activities.
Seconded.
So it's moved by Mr. Scalzo, seconded by Ms. Turner. Mr. McCausland, can we vote?
Voting is open. Motion carries 8-1. One abstention, sorry.
Mr. McGregor, Personnel Committee.
Okay, under personnel, there are 8 items, and I'll read those. Approval of extra duty responsibility program, 21, 22. Acceptance of resignations. Appointment of personnel. Approval of unpaid leave of absence, professional. 5, approval of unpaid leave of absence, classified. 6, agreement with Keystone Educational Consulting Group. Number 7 is approval of Schoology Champion. And finally, number 8, MOU with the Bethel Park Federation of Teachers. Any discussion? Okay, with no discussion, I move 1 through 8.
Second.
The items on the Personnel Committee were moved by Mr. McGregor, seconded by Mr. Scalzo. Can we take a vote?
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Mr. Modrak, Facilities Committee.
Yes, sir. We have 4 items on the Facilities Committee at this time. First one, approval of the proposal for a geotechnical exploration and engineering evaluation. The second, approval of the proposal for professional survey services. The third, purchase of fence and gate for George Washington Elementary School. And the fourth is the purchase of rock salt ice melt. Any, possibly, since Mr. Fierce is here, give us a little explanation for 1 and 2.
I can help you with the first one. The first one
There you go, thank you.
has to do with where we're going to put the elevator at IMS. They're going to dig down to make sure what the base is like. So that's related to the IMS project. Nick, can you address the other ones?
For number 2, that is from CEC for some of the work that they did with the IMS project and surveys. For number 3, the purchase of the gate for George Washington. The gate that leads directly back into the playground area is old and it's borderline dilapidated, but with this fence, it's only 6 foot tall, and it actually promotes the ability for outside people to climb onto the roof of the garage of George Washington. This will take the gate from 6 foot tall to 8 foot tall while adding privacy slats into the fence so people cannot get their foot into the fencing to climb. This will also add a sliding gate instead of the 2 swinging barrier gates, which will create a more secure barrier between the road and the actual playground when our students are back there. And the purchase of rock salts are yearly purchase that we need after we disperse our current inventory.
Thank you. My understanding, George Washington issue with the roof access has been a 30-year issue. So thank you. Hopefully this will alleviate that.
I'm planning it should.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to move, if there's no other questions or comments, move all 4 items forward.
Seconded.
So the facilities and services items were moved by Mr. Modrak, seconded by Mr. Greisbeck.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Mr. Greisbeck, Finance Committee.
All right, so tonight we have 9 items for Finance Committee. The bill list for December 2021, budgetary transfers, Patan grant acceptance, payment for repair of replacement HVAC units, payment for Bethel Park High School water remediation project, payment for Independence Middle School 6th grade renovations, approval of contract for construction management services, purchase of frontline education, recruiting and hiring bundle, and approval to grant an easement. I request that we table item number 7. Dr. Walsh, would you like to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, the administration has been working on interviewing and identifying a candidate or a company to be a construction management consultant for the IMS project. We'll be meeting next week with a consultant from Carnegie Mellon on the energy savings portion of the project. So we'd like to hold out on recommending this agreement until that consultant can review it and get back to the board in January with a better proposal.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the remaining items?
Mr. McCausland, can you explain the $7,500 patent grant and what it will be used for?
I'm going to have to turn to Mr. Mensch, I think, who's on the line. This was related to special ed.
Yes, can you hear me?
You're hard to hear.
Okay. Let me try something different. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have a fabulous facilitator in the special education department, Julie Hernandez, who applied for the Discovery Transitions Grant and was awarded that $7,500, and actually could be another $7,500 in phase 2 of the program. But The purpose of the grant is to facilitate partnerships with the community that support transition activities for our students with IEPs. So it's an exciting opportunity. Basically, it'll start out with some surveying of community stakeholders on the kinds of things that they would see as possible community ventures for our students in transition. And we would take that survey information and we would use it to build a plan. And we would be collaborating with other school districts that are in the cohort for the transition grant. So it will include not only Bethel Park, where that will be our first immediate outreach, but then it will also include the collaboration with the other school districts in the grant program. So, it's an exciting thing, and Mrs. Hernandez, again, she's just absolutely phenomenal in getting these opportunities for our kids, and she's very excited, and we have a school-based team ready to go.
I have one comment on item number 4. I believe Mr. Nagel had asked about this at a previous meeting. I just want to clarify that these are installation of HVAC units, not the repair of any units, correct?
They're actually related to the IMS gym project. It's the payment for those.
Right, but those are just putting in new units, correct?
Those
It's
are
not
new
actually
units.
repairing.
Those are new units. They are
repairing
not
units.
repairs.
Any other questions?
Yeah, on number 5, I looked in the courtyard the other day. So it appears that there's only a couple steps left to complete on that whole project.
That's correct. We'll have to do the sidewalk, concrete work, and the seeding of the area in the spring.
Excellent,
We
thank you.
withheld the money on that portion of the project. Everything else is being paid.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
If you can make a motion to table item number 7, and then we can make a motion to adopt the remaining 8 items.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to table item number 7, approval of contract for construction management services.
Second.
So motion was made by Mr. Greisbeck to table item number 7, the approval of the contract for construction management services, and seconded by Mr. Scalzo.
Voting is open. Motion passes.
So item number 7 is tabled until the administration is ready to discuss it. To pull it back onto agenda, we'll need to remove it from the table through a motion at the next meeting or whenever we're ready to address that.
All right, so I move to approve items 1 through 6, as well as items 8 and 9.
Second.
Motion was made to approve the remaining items on the Finance Committee by Mr. Greisbeck and seconded by Ms. Hoppy.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda, Policy Committee. Ms. Turner?
Is your microphone on?
Okay, let's try this again. Revision to policy 334, sick leave, and 702.1, crowdfunding, are for the third and final reading. So I move to approve policy number 334 and 702.1.
Second.
So it was moved by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Greisbeck to adopt, what policy number was this?
334 and
Policy 334 and 702.1.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Okay, number 2 under policy is the A second reading for 308.11 employee resignations, and the first of 3 readings for policy 815.2, educational use of student-owned technology devices. Both of these were, this one was some minor things, but making sure that students' own technology devices still follow the policies of Bethel Park. Dr. Walsh, is there any more clarification on that? I think I got that pretty well.
No, yeah, you're correct. So this federation and the district continued the discipline committee. This was a recommendation from the members of the committee. I believe there'll be 2 members of the committee here to meet the board in January, to talk about other recommendations they have and requests for changes. So we wanted to get this particular item moving, since it takes 3 readings to get it done. They'll be here in January to answer any questions about it.
They seem pretty straightforward. It's almost the same thing we're signing when it's our device, so we're staying in line. That's all I have.
Okay. The other, who can take a other?
I could take it.
Okay. I would recommend that at a minimum, we separate item number 1, the health and safety plan, and then the other 3 we can probably take together.
Okay. The first item, revised health and safety plan. Is there any discussion?
Would someone from the administration like to lay out what we're doing with the changing of that plan?
So when the board adopted the health and safety plan at the end of August, you put a end of first semester timeline on the mask mandate in the health and safety plan. So knowing that the board will not meet again until after the start of second semester, we put the health and safety plan on the agenda tonight for reconsideration. But we made a change to that based on our read of the quarantining procedures and guidelines, and of course the local conditions and the data that we have available. We wanted to attach the mask mandate to some kind of metric that could potentially put a future end date on it. And so the way it reads now would be that the masking would be required if transmission in the county were high or substantial. And after the numbers, after a week of moderate or low, then masks would be optional.
Thank you.
Mr. Christensen, do you want to vote on this one separately? Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move, if there's no more comments or discussion, are there any more comments before I'd like to move number 1, revised health and safety plan.
Second.
It was moved by Mr. Scalzo, seconded by Mr. McGregor to adopt the revised health and safety plan.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Item 2, student settlement agreement and release. Item 3, student agreement. Number 4, student settlement agreement and release. Any discussion? Any questions? I move items 2 through 4.
Second.
So items 2 through 4 were moved by Mr. Scalzo and seconded by Mrs. Janasek.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Next item, public comments. Do we have anybody on the phone?
There is no one on the phone.
Okay. Board comments.
Mr. Christensen, just 1 second.
Yes.
There is a parent that did email us, the board, if everyone wants to look and see, and he made reference to comment on tonight's health and safety plan. And he just makes reference to, unfortunately, he had a conflict. He would not be able to stay on, participate in the program at this time. So we all can read it, or is it something we should read to the public? I know we're back to the old format here, sort of, but
Yeah.
is there an exception we can make at this time to read Mr. Foote's comment?
I think that we should keep it to phone messages.
Okay, just as acknowledge that,
Right.
that we did receive his comment and was taken
Yeah, we
under
did.
advisement.
We did.
That's all.
Board comments?
You know what, I'll make a comment. I just want to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday month. Everyone in the boardroom right now, everyone at home, and all the students especially. We'll see you guys next year.
I want to say the same thing. Enjoy the winter break. All the students, hopefully, we get a little bit of snow, maybe a dusting, a little. Everybody enjoy your holidays. And thank you, Dr. Walsh, for taking Mrs. Hoppy and I around the other day. We met some lovely people, and thank you all very much for their patience and showing us around their buildings. It was very lovely. And go out and enjoy all those musical concerts that are happening here in our district. Absolutely wonderful performances by amazing students with very dedicated teachers. And thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Anything else? Other
I
comments?
do.
Okay.
Most of you know, over the past 2 weeks, my family has had a really difficult time, and the support that you have all shown us, the support that we've got from the administration outside of this building, has been totally amazing, and I thank you all very much. And happy holidays to everyone.
So, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and see everybody in January.
That's Santa with a mask. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Let's vote. What happened?
Who made the, I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I did.
Second by, thank you. You're moving too fast for me. Voting's open.
Past your bedtime, Doug.
No, I didn't read it. I didn't know he had to record it for the adjournment.
Motion carries.